Thunder Grunt.
SHrimpNight.
Now that we have nothing left to talk about.
Yeah, I know. Now that the vibe is completely shot.
It's fine. It's completely shot. Hey, what were we talking about before we started? That was interesting. It was like, and I've already forgotten it because of how many problems we've had up until now.
Was it interesting? I mean, we found it interesting at the time. Well, would we even recognize it now? Do you know? Have you ever done that? Where you have an idea and you forget it, and then you come back to it and you're like, I don't even know if this is the same idea because it just doesn't have the same sparkle it used to have.
Right. It was something to do with not being in person, and then I can't remember.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was talking about the sort of take it or leave it aspect of getting back into physical encounters with people, that there's like something you definitely get out of being in the same room with people.
Right.
But the part that you've sort of forgotten and that you can't romanticize is the getting to and from places and parking and all the stuff surrounding like being around.
Oh,
people.
right. Parking. That's what I was thinking of. Like literally whenever I have a lot of friends that are in bands and stuff, or just people that do things like I do too. I can't say I don't do things.
Right.
But whenever I think about having to do anything, maybe is it weird? I guess it's not for you to think about, okay, I got to walk out of my house, get into my car, drive there, find parking, walk into the place, then hope to God somewhere in there has a chair I can sit in. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking all of that before I go, and I'm just like already exhausted and I quit.
Yeah, like I hope they have air conditioning when I get there.
Right.
I hope that there's an attendant at the parking deck so I can find out like when they close, or whatever thing you've got to figure out that you just would be confused about. But I also think that like it reminds me of what people used to say about like exercising. It's not the exercising that you don't enjoy almost. It's the getting to and from the gym. It's the getting on your workout clothes or whatever thing it is that can kind of kill like, you know what? Tomorrow. I just don't want to go through all these steps.
The only time in my life I've been successful with an exercise regimen is literally during the pandemic, really, because everything's at home. So, and to be honest with you, you can exercise and you don't have to like shower right away. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can still do stuff around the house and stuff. You're not seeing people. I'm completely alone. So it's like I can exercise, do my stuff, shower later. And
it's true that you have like, I think it just extends that notion of like, I think lately there's been a lot of talk about when people shower and how often people shower. And I think that we all need to kind of reclaim that feeling of how nice it feels to be all showered up and ready to go.
It feels great.
But time became a lot more elastic in the lockdown for sure. And I think everything was that way, where you would just be like, okay, I think I've worn the same pajamas now for 2 or 3 days in a row. I think most people had at least one or two instances of that, the kind of.
Oh, I think during the pandemic, the average for me generally was 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel guilty about that. If I'm seeing literally no one.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the point? As long as you're changing your sheets and stuff on a regular basis. And, why waste the water? Isn't that the point? I don't know.
I feel like, you've got to get acquainted with your own musk every now and then. Everyone has to. But here's a caveat to that. If someone's tracking you, you want to shower really often.
Oh, you mean like Bill Gates? Well, now that I have the vaccine.
No, I mean more like an old school tracker. Like someone who's going to come and feel the chair and be like, someone was here 30 minutes ago. That kind of tracker, like. Oh, well, yeah. Okay. You don't want to have too pungent of a musk if you're being tracked. That's all. So if you're on the run, then showering all the time. I would even say switching up the products you use is probably a good idea.
Well, okay. You're talking like if you live some kind of like interesting, like born identity.
I'm saying if something interesting were happening, yes. I think for the life we've been living, laying around and like extending that time between showers. it reminds me of like in college, there's like an experiment you run of just like, well, when does it become like necessary to shower?
Yeah, as you know, I have a lot. I have a lot of friends who wear like those party vests that are like the jean vest with all the patches. Mm-hmm. And I know that a few of my friends have like literally Googled how dirty can fabric actually get before it like hits the event horizon of dirtiness, and like it does there is actually a stopping point for how dirty something can get. Like, it can't get more dirty.
I think I've found, like, I actually have an interesting answer for that right now, because we just had our awning cleaned after a long time of not cleaning it.
Okay.
And suddenly it's like leak. It's just like leak prone. Before it had a couple of leaky spots, but now it's just like a leaky like fabric. And the guy even told us that like a lot of the gunk that was on there, the stuff that he cleaned off, the pollen and the stuff, it was like forming a seal. It was like holding the fabric together in spots. And so when he cleaned it, it's like threadbare. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's like
right, yeah.
So it looks good still, but like we noticed, just water's just kind of seeping through it now. And he said, I put 3 coats. I normally only put 2 of the sealant, but I put 3, and he left some sealant with me to spot, all that stuff. But like, it just made me think about, like, so I think a denim party vest, the point at which you wash
which your awning is made out of, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly, right. It's all party vest material. But I mean, if we're going to compare awning material to a party vest, then and what are party vests if not the awning of a person? but like, I think that if you wash it and then the structural integrity of it is no longer, no longer stable, I think that's probably the point of no return with the garment. There's a risk you take washing it if the dirt has like become part
of the thing. But I mean, at the same time, it's like that whole like keeping the windows open versus the AC. Either way, you're running the gas down, like you keeping it completely dirty or washing it a lot. Every time you wash clothes, you're killing it a little bit, right? I mean, just a little bit. You're like, that's what lint is, right? Lint is like scrubbing the top layer of skin off your skin, but in this case, it doesn't grow back. So
I got to tell you, this has given me a good idea for like a Pixar movie about clothing. It has sentience. Yeah,
lint. We call lint.
Well, they're gradually, like, the lint character is growing and getting bigger, but the jeans are getting sad and more dilapidated.
I could see that as like a short before a Pixar.
Yeah.
I'm woefully behind on Pixar, by the way. I hate to tell you that of all people, but I'm like 3 movies behind. I don't know why.
I mean, isn't that like the lockdown era essentially you've missed? Like, they've put out a couple movies that have felt less. The movies feel less like movies when they come out that way, even though it's great to watch them at home, and we all probably have a television that we like at home, and it's perfect. It's a great way to see stuff. But I do think that like Pixar was something that felt more like a big deal, and now it feels like these movies are getting kind of dumped off.
I feel like that's a great thing to talk about too with you, because number one, I asked you to do it. Number one, because I'm a fan of your show. Number 2, because we're friends, and number 3, we just haven't hung out in so long.
No, it has been a long time.
It has been such a long time, man, and I miss you.
Miss you too, Pop.
But we used to also go to movie screenings like all the time. I'd see you there, and that was like a great part of my life. That was like something that gave my life meaning, which might sound terrible, but going to the movies gave my life a lot of meaning.
I always think it's funny that like we would see each other at the movie screening, and it would be like before the movie, it's all business. It's like, hey, Bob, how's it going, Bob? And then after the movie, it's like, that's when you stand there and they're like trying to shut the theater down, and there's a crowd of people sitting there talking like an hour and a half after the movie or whatever. And you'd sort of feel like it's like that talk that you have on the sidewalk with people that you run into, and you realize like we may as well have decided to sit down somewhere because we just hung out for an hour. But
also there was like a business
that doesn't happen anymore,
because like, there was like, I was supposed to be like I'm a critic, apparently. I don't even know if that exists anymore. I don't know what's happening with that, but either way, there was like a business thing where like you guys were kind of in the normal people seats. I always hated the whole like seating arrangement. I had to sit in the critic seats, which I don't actually like because they're closer. I actually kind of like being a little bit farther away. So I was never a fan of where they put the critic seats. No clue if that'll change after the pandemic. Like,
what the heck's happening with any of this? I've heard that there's been some like press screenings that are sort of packed out, but I think we had a bubble of like maybe a month and a half where it felt like things were
we had hope
back towards normal. And now it seems like I went to see a few movies in theaters that I now would not make that decision. I mean, I can think of a couple of movies coming up that I might figure out a time and a way to see them that doesn't feel too risky, but
I wish I took advantage of that 2-month bubble we had of like hope before Delta came along, but I didn't. I watched everything at home, and you know what the reason my decision was on that, to go along with what we were saying, like I could have seen Suicide Squad in theaters, but I kind of don't want to do that if it's not a packed crowd or I'm not with a bunch of friends. Like, that's also kind of the point. And me going to a theater completely alone and sitting there at like 8:30 in the morning, I might as well just be at my house. You know what I mean?
I think that seeing it big and hearing it loud is
good. It's good.
It's part of it.
It is.
But I would say that you're right. I think Suicide Squad, what you would miss about the theatrical experience from that would more be the crowd experience. Like when I was watching, I should say the Suicide Squad.
We're talking about James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
From the wicked mind of James Gunn, as they said in all the trailers.
The horribly beautiful, I think. It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just love that became I feel like that was a risky thing to hang the marketing of that movie on, because I think there's an audience that means something to, and then there's a lot of people to whom that means nothing to. But also, if anything, having it have the name that's very similar to a movie that a lot of people didn't like is another thing that is confusing.
We live in a different world than a lot of people, and I learned that because of this movie. And looking at, I didn't realize. I know other people have actual lives where they care about important things. I understand that, and like the last month, I was like just seeing so many things about. Wait, they made a sequel. And like they didn't. A lot of people just didn't even understand that it was a different movie, or that it wasn't Warner Brothers forcing it upon us. It was actually a choice by one guy. Yeah. Like Warner Brothers didn't even want to make this movie. Right. They just said, you can do anything you want. And he happened to choose this. That's the only reason it exists. And you got to explain this to people. And they're like, well, they don't care. They don't care who. Well,
I also think they needlessly confused that by every time they turned around saying it's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's basically a sequel. It is like, sequel, yes. I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. It's got a couple of the same actors in the same roles, and you could imagine that it's like a James Bond continuity, at least, if not a much tighter continuity than that. But it totally feels like it could exist in the same idea of like a Fast and the Furious franchise where a different director comes in each time. Like you could have a David Ayer Suicide Squad movie and then a James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, and you would call those sequels, right? I mean, I felt like all this. I just felt like it was this movie. It really was. It started to seem very precious to me that people were saying, "Well, it's not a reboot. It's not a sequel. It's got some of the same characters." It's like, well, you're really confusing, right?
It's a sequel.
Call it Suicide Squad 2 or Suicide Squad still Suicide Squad or something that like makes people understand what they're getting. But anyway, I think what you're getting at with that whole bubble thing is like, yes, to us and people that we know, a James Gunn movie is a pretty big deal in terms of like an auteurist movie that we want to see. It's like a Quentin Tarantino level.
I know, and I don't want to be an asshole. Like when I see somebody say that, and I'm like, I gotta understand that. Like, yes, he's actually one of my heroes. Like, yeah, I've always loved James Gunn. This is before Guardians, even. He's been always been one of my heroes. But I gotta understand that when other people are looking at this, it's not how I'm seeing it and not how I'm anticipating it. It's like. And also there's no goodwill for the first one, and that's understandable, right? You know, so I also think that Warner Brothers miscalculated that. They didn't realize how much bad vibes are out there for the original, I think, from consumers.
But this movie is also not hitting theaters at a time where you can have that word of mouth and that excitement and everything that would have made this. And back to what we originally were talking about, that theatrical experience with a packed crowd for this movie would have been incredible. Like this would have been a super fun movie to see with a crowd.
So I had like two or three friends who kind of liked it. They didn't love it. And I was trying to say this. It was in a text chat, so I'm not talking to them. And I'm like, I guarantee you, if you saw like with us, all of us as a group in a packed theater on like a Friday night, your opinion would be way higher of the movie. And I'm just like, I guarantee you that. But instead, you watched it at home, and you watched it with like your spouse, and they kind of were on their phone, and they weren't that into it. And it didn't. And it takes. And
you got up to put laundry in the dryer while the movie was going. Yeah, it
just takes so much out of it that it's like a first impression meeting someone. You meet someone and they kind of piss their pants a little bit. You're gonna have some views about them, right? Like this movie was meant. It's kind of that kind of movie that's meant to be, introduced to you in that way the first time, and then for the rest of eternity you can watch it at home. Yeah, and it works because you still have that memory.
And you're right, exactly. You can plug back into that theatrical experience. I mean, one of my favorite theatrical experiences ever was the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Absolutely,
and that's partially because of my son was at the right age. He was like 6 or 7, and he was so excited. It was when the new theater Towson Commons was opening at that point, and so we were happy to have a theater close to home that was showing big movies. And my son wore a little tuxedo to the movie, and it was like the whole family came, and all the Marvel movies were like family affairs for us. But this was the one that really felt like a flavor, because it was reminding you of other movies you love from, that I was nostalgic for, but also just a fresh spin on it, because it is James Gunn, and he does bring something like a quirky rhythm or something different to his movies that you kind of have to love, or I guess you could dislike it. But
I could argue that Marvel in general brings that. I mean, Gunn especially, but I mean, generally most of the Marvel movie screenings have always been a good time. Like,
yes,
even for the cynics that don't like Marvel, I'm like, if you were at the screening though, you can see there's value. Like if you were there on opening night, there is actually value to these things. Maybe not when you're sitting at home and you're not on their side. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there is value,
Right.
Like that first Avengers, seeing that. I mean, I'll never forget seeing Avengers.
They're the first time, their best. They're at their best when there's a communal experience happening.
Right. It's that's one of the best things that ever happened in a theater in my life, is seeing the first Avengers. I didn't even expect it to be that good. And it was like people falling out of their chairs. Like, you know what I mean? And I can't relay that to somebody who in 2021 is watching it for the first time on Disney Plus. Like, like that's a piece of the movie that you just can never appreciate.
And so I will say that of the movies I did go see at the theater, the Green Knight was one.
Oh yeah,
where even though it was not a packed room and it was not a crowd response kind of movie, that was one where I was like, I'm so glad I saw that in the theater, because that is one where seeing it big and hearing it loud actually does make like
a difference,
much bigger difference than what the crowd is not going to react. That movie's not going to like get an audience with it, and like it's going to turn people off, and you're going to feel people, whatever. People are not on board necessarily for a kind of arty film like that sometimes. I
saw some. I haven't seen it, number one, but I saw some accusations of being extremely slow. I think for some people who weren't prepared for what it was.
I know that it's an A24 movie, and people know that that's like a prestige imprint, but I think that the trailers still sold like you could believe it was a trailer for a kind of pulse pounding experience. I think that's a problem with a lot of these kind of A24 so-called elevated horror films too, is that the trailer looks much more like a conventional horror experience, and then the movie will be this cool arty slow burn. I love a lot of those movies. I love what they're doing, but I can't imagine someone coming into Green Knight thinking they're getting like an arty movie that still feels like an adventure tale, but this is much more like a dream-like journey. It's all about the themes, and there's scenes that are really engaging, but in between there's a lot of like just travel, and it's kind of episodic. But they're
hard sells, though. They got to sell them.
No, it's a hard sell. They did a great job of selling it. I guess we're still not in a world where we even know what that movie would have done theatrically had it come out
right
in the world that people like it was made for. But that was one where, okay, I could have seen that one alone, and the impact of seeing it big and loud did make it like, oh, I'm glad I saw that way. The way that with Suicide Squad, if you saw it by yourself in the middle of the afternoon, it'd be cool to see it big and loud, but it would almost feel you'd feel a little silly watching that movie alone in the dark. You'd be laughing and turning to nobody going, like, I don't know. I just think James Gunn makes movies that you want to watch and have that fun, like, I can't believe that just happened,
They're people make fun of sitcoms with laugh tracks, and for good reason. I mean, I love a lot of sitcoms with laugh tracks, but I understand the criticism. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of experience we have because of other people. And yes, we're basically both saying that the live laugh track in a movie theater actually matters to us.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that makes somebody stupider or more like you're an easily led sheep who only laughs at things that other people laugh at. You know what I mean? No, that's not it. Like it actually has value, like to know that. And it also actually helps you see sometimes jokes that you wouldn't have seen, because you can hear a response from the audience, and then it makes you go back and see, like, in that moment, okay, I get it now. Like I might have missed a joke or something,
Also a little joke that you go, oh my God, that's great. And you hear one other person go, ah! In the dark.
You're like, that guy's my new friend.
Yeah,
right. Like he got it. We're
and I'm not crazy to think that was a joke too,
right?
Without having to stop and say, do you see why that's funny? To like, someone in your home who, like you said, just might not be as into the type of movie that you're watching. Like
I think when I saw
I watched Suicide Squad twice, once with my wife and then once with my son, and she watched it. She didn't want to watch it a second time, but then she did. And she was like, "Oh, I liked it so much better the second time."
It was so much better the second time.
But she was like, "I knew what kind of movie it was." And I guess this could count as a spoiler. I don't know if you beep out semi-spoilers. This is a slight.
For anyone listening right now, it's a spoiler coming up.
A slight baby. If I had known the rat was going to live, I would have relaxed much more the first time through. So the second time through, it was a movie full of me enjoying the hell out of that rat. Sebastian, because I knew that James Gunn was right up to the moment at the end where he's like curling up on Idris Elba's leg. I thought he was going to say "fuck this" and like throw the rat into the propeller. I was like, okay, this is a James Gunn movie. Don't get too attached to anybody. But I think James Gunn has a soft spot.
Also a Suicide Squad movie, on top of being
right. But I'm just saying, I could have seen the last moment being this really mean joke of like him saying, "I can't take this rat."
Right. Yeah.
But I'm glad that he's got the little sentimental side that he knows. Like James Gunn loves animals, and I think he loves like the put upon characters. And I think whatever glee he takes in killing people off, he also does have characters that you can tell he doesn't intend to hurt and touch. Yeah, he doesn't want the audience to just be miserable when they're leaving the theater either.
I feel like he has a real affection for cuteness, which I'm sure a lot of people rip his ass out of in reviews and stuff. But Baby Groot, the rat, it all works. It's there. You can see it. There's a real affection for like soft spot of a cute little animal or something like that. But I was gonna say, like, when I watched it 3 times. I'm not gonna lie, and I was supposed to do a podcast on it, and I haven't yet. We're going to on this on Thunder Grunt, but I was gonna say, like, the way it opened, I've watched a few people's reaction to it. To me, I was like not even remotely surprised. I was like none of it shocked me.
Yeah,
but it's because of my familiarity with. I was just like expecting that to happen with.
I even thought it was going to be more of a blended thing with like the teams, but when it opened the way that it did, I was like, "Oh, we are looking at the B team." This is
right. I was like, they're all fucking dead, and I
was like, none of these assholes are on the poster. That's what I thought looking around. Like maybe there's one poster that has 20 characters on it, but the main poster has like 5 or 6 characters on it. And I would say, there's your biggest spoiler, everybody. You want to see who makes it to the second act? Look at the main poster.
I only really believed Harley wouldn't die. That's it. And that's only because I'm pretty sure they're not going to throw away Margot Robbie as Harley anytime soon.
I didn't think they would kill Rick Flag and Boomerang in the same scene, so I kind of knew one of them would make it. Yeah, but I also kind of
major spoilers here.
Okay, well, but also what I just said could leave you in some mystery, but there is a surprise about how that happens, and I do think the movie gets in a couple of moments. Like there's one character who dies quickly, but there's a moment that resonates through the film that they have.
Yes,
has to do with Harley, and I loved that. And in fact, of the people who croaked, I would say the actor, the performer who has that moment with Harley was one of the ones I was really looking forward to seeing in this movie, because I think they're very funny, and I was like, oh, it would have been great to get more.
Yeah, and also that moment plays so much better the second watch.
Yeah,
like like it's one of those movies where I feel like that first watch it goes by so fast. Like the second time was really the savor. And it just works so much better. Like,
and you're thinking about like, how do I feel about this? Is he going to drop the ball? Is this going to, and it does have like some little kind of ebbs and flows, but I thought there were so many clever turns that it just kept me. And the second time through, I was able to admire the craft of all those twists,
Right. Yeah. No, I'm trying not, let's not make this a Suicide Squad.
Yeah, right.
I was going to say, if you guys have probably already done an episode on that, haven't you?
We did talk about it. I think we talked a lot about the implications of its performance being this movie that seemed like everyone involved thought was going to be a bigger deal than it was, even in this environment, even in the limited theatrical kind of experience people are having right now. It seems like it sort of underperformed, which on the movie podcast that I co-host, Movie Schmovie, we try not to do too much like box office talk, but sometimes if you're talking about like the kinds of movies that are likely to get made, and like
it's a future story thing, right?
Yeah. But it's also like, if this movie was just going gangbusters, then it would be like, okay, James Gunn, whatever plans they had, whatever, whatever's going on with him would be secure. But you know how these things get changed behind the scenes when they see like what movies are going to come out with a hybrid model at home or in theaters, or are they going to extend that window? Is it going to keep shrinking? All that stuff. I think a movie like this sort of not doing what they thought it would do box office wise is having them look really hard at that. Well, did we kill it by making it available to people at home?
Right.
As part of a subscription service, and not doing what Disney has done with like Black Widow and bumping up to I mean, that movie probably would have done okay. I think if it had been, I would have paid.
Yeah.
I would have paid
for Black Widow
or whatever.
I enjoyed Black Widow.
But I'm saying for Suicide Squad, I would have paid instead. I was already paying for HBO Max. I would have paid a premium fee for it as well.
Right.
But I think they have some metric by which they know how much it was watched. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it's changing. Yeah. The movie business is changing as to how they're going to say it was worth it that we spent almost $200 million making the Suicide Squad, and then probably another $200 million marketing it, and then like where's that return? It's gonna change what kinds of movies they make. I find that interesting.
You'd agree too. I'm guessing here. It's probably the most critically beloved DCEU movie so far, and
absolutely.
I think WB. I mean, they've had some major hits. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Aquaman made $1 billion. So did Joker. So you can't say that. But like, I feel like in the DCEU, they finally have something that like critics didn't take the shit right out of its ass. Like in the second.
Well, Wonder Woman did pretty well, and I thought Shazam actually did reasonably well.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was something DC was good to have in the arsenal there.
I think that the point what I'm trying to say is when the pandemic, hopefully, is slowed. Yeah, whenever that happens, or the world, and if the world doesn't end from the pandemic, when that happens, they're going to let Gunn actually have a run again. When there's like actual movie theaters that exist, you know what I'm saying? Because they're like, okay, he makes movies people like. That was not his fault, like it really isn't. I mean, that's not his fault that the box office was like it was.
That movie could Delta was literally like a midnight movie. It's so fun and has some like
right.
I mean, it's like gory and schlocky in these fun ways. So that movie definitely could have future life as like. I think a lot of movies actually are going to have, we're going to see maybe a return of that just because of how many movies didn't get to have the sort of moment in the sun that people felt like they could have.
Yeah,
I bet you'll see a lot of screenings of kind of re-releases of things.
Like a rescreening or review or something. Like I would see Bill and Ted. I haven't seen Bill and Ted 3 on the big screen. I'd like to do that at some point in my life just to complete the trilogy. You know what I mean? I'd like to, because it would also make me feel like there's a lot of movies that I wish I saw with my friends. Yes. A lot of these movies, like I just like shouldn't be watching this at home alone, and it aches me to have watched them like that. Suicide Squad being one of them, and I'd really like that experience back. What the pandemic stole from us. I like it to try to get it back.
Well, it was interesting feeling like it. Like I said, I was okay. I can go see a movie at a certain time and feel comfortable that it won't be too crowded, and you'd see the theaters had seats blocked out in such a way that you weren't going to be parties weren't going to be having to mingle too much with each other. And then it seemed like it went back to full capacity, but at least you can still see seating chart, like what seats are booked. But then it's like, now that it's like, okay, you're hearing about people that are vaccinated getting
it's like
intubated, and it's like, okay, no, I'm I'm wearing my mask everywhere, and I'm hanging out at home a little bit again, but that's okay.
I'm not going to, I've been very, as you probably know, I've been very careful with the pandemic.
Yes. Which I respect.
Right. More careful than most. I'm very anal about it. And literally no one is as careful enough for me.
You were going to say literally anal about it.
Literally anal. It's off my ass about it. But like, to me, I'm like, I could go see Suicide Squad, at 11 o'clock in the morning or something. But I'm also like, the whole time I'm doing it, I'm going to be thinking about death.
Yeah.
I like, it's not fun. Everything's so fucking morbid. How am I going to go out and have fun? I don't know.
Right.
I'm thinking about, let me walk into this building and my main goal is to not die. It's like, it doesn't make me want to enjoy a movie very much, to be honest with you.
Right.
So I've kind of avoided it completely.
Well, I mean, it is a little bit of is it worth the risk? And then if the movie, at least if it's a movie you like, that's one thing. But if it's a movie you're seeing for the first time and it's not great, you're thinking, okay.
But even if it's great, is that worth the risk? I guess there's a risk.
I don't think it really is, but I'm saying especially if you're already worried about whether it's worth the risk, then seeing a mediocre movie makes it even more just like, okay, this is not right. This is not right.
You're dying from it anyway. You're like, yeah, that movie sucks.
Yeah.
God damn it. Yeah. I guess you're right. Well,
but I mean, I don't know what's out right now that I would even want to say suck. Every movie that's out, I've sort of rooted for. Everything I've heard about, I'm like, I hope this movie, I just want them to still be able to make movies, but I know that, like, you know, I could see the model changing to the extent that suddenly those mid-budget movies are more lucrative for them again, because now they can, you look at something like the M. Night Shyamalan movie, which was made for, like, I think it was an $18 million budget, and it had made 50 million pretty quickly. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so he gets to make another one, and the studio's got to be pretty happy about that. And it's like, at what point is it not just easier and better to make 4 or 5 of those than to make one of these behemoths? Which, again, I love the behemoths, and I love the experience. Are great. Yeah, but we've been saying all this time, what's going to pop the bubble, the superhero bubble, the franchise bubble. I honestly wonder if the momentum of that shit wasn't forever altered by this last year, because so much of what fueled that feeling is like
in person.
It's the in-person being part of the cultural conversation. Everybody's involved. Everyone's enjoying it. If you don't have that, then it becomes much more about just what are your actual tastes.
John, do you remember 2 things? Thor arriving in Wakanda and Captain America using Thor's hammer. Do you remember what it was like being in the theater for that?
Oh, absolutely.
I would have paid triple the price just to experience that again. Mm-hmm. That was an incredible moment in movie going, in cinema. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the value lay. You know, it was like, we don't.
Yeah. You actually went from you could hear a pin drop moment to you couldn't hear a cannon go off moment. You know what I mean? The crowd
it's like literally
watching. Everybody was breathing together, and then suddenly everyone explodes together. Yeah,
it's a sporting event. It's that big of a deal. And will we have that again? We will eventually, but
when will you be in a crowded room full of people hooting and hollering and not be conscious of death, as you said that? Like, I was thinking about that with like a rock show, like
2025.
Well, that's what I mean. When will it be that I'm just like enjoying myself at a show and looking at people and going, yeah, this is great, and not thinking like we beat it. Oh my God, we're still alive, or let's all die tonight, or whatever you'd be thinking if you went to a show now, you know? Right. And I respect all the people I know who've gotten out there and done stuff. I think a lot of people are playing the odds, and they're living their lives, and I respect that. But whenever I feel like I'm playing the odds, I think about how often the odds have not gone my way. So I like, boop, 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 I kind of just back, as Homer backing up into the bushes. That gif. Yeah.
No, I had to go to the DMV the other day, and even that was that was like 4 days ago. And even then, that whole trip was excruciating to me in my mind. So I'm like, I know I'm
getting
not
a renewal,
or I get a renewal. I had to.
I
had no choice.
I was wondering, what documents did you have to show? Because they have this crazy list of shit.
So that was my 3rd visit, because for anyone that lives in Maryland, if you're going for your real ID, you have to bring your original birth certificate, not a copy. I learned this the hard way. Okay, you have to bring your original birth certificate. And then you have to have 2 forms of your address and like a social security or a passport. So it sucks. It's like you need, and it's, I'm not going to, let's not talk about that, but like, it's to me, it's all shifty, because I'm like, I don't like them having to require all this from people. It seems like it's really hard for a lot of people to do, and I worry about what they're going to use it for in the future.
What it's designed to do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like voting and such like that.
Who is designed to disenfranchise, for sure.
It's disenfranchised, because for me, a privileged white guy who has access to that information in those documents, still, that was hard. So my
documents are a bit scattered, so I can't even get together those documents. But I wanted to say one thing. I love in a recent, maybe the last time we did a full podcast together was on your bonus disc show. And you and I railed against contractors on that show. I think it would be funny if we went against the DMV this time.
Dude, let me tell you something.
We would officially be 2 80-year-old men sitting on a park bench then, if that's what we did this episode.
Can I just say though, like,
what?
And I say this, I know this is maybe not your style, but like literally everyone at the DMV when I went that was not wearing a mask was a white boomer. It was completely the cliche. It was like, I even looked around.
The look of surprise and shock on my face when you told me that?
They were all like 60, 70-year-old white people, and they were totally carelessly not wearing like any type. I'm wearing 2 masks. I can barely breathe. Like literally, I'm having trouble.
I put one over my eyes and just.
I know. I wish I had a fishbowl just to put over my head. But like
an astronaut suit would be awesome.
And look, I'm fat. I'm not body shaming. 2 of these boomers they made me feel not as fat as I am. They were that large, not wearing masks, not even holding masks, nothing. Right. they're sitting in the literal middle of their room, surrounded by a bunch of people, and they have their dogs with them, and they're openly talking to everyone around them. And I'm like, there's no fear. I was like, and you can't tell me they're vaccinated. I know they aren't.
No, God.
They are.
God,
they're not at all.
Ask.
It's just like, I'm just like looking at them and I'm like, you look like you're going to die of normal
like
causes.
Tell me you're not
soon.
vaccinated without telling me you're not vaccinated.
And I'm just
they were
like,
doing it.
I know. I'm just like the guy, like they, I could, you look at a person, you're like, that person needs constant medical attention from their doctor or they're going to die within a couple months. Right. I was like, you don't need a pandemic to be in danger of dying soon.
Yeah.
And you're in here already just sucking it all in like happily. They look like they weren't even there for anything. They were just hanging out. I don't even know if they had a number. It was crazy.
They were just down there owning the libs, man.
They didn't have Trump hats on or anything. Okay. I'm not saying that.
No, you're not.
It just was like they were so fine with everything. And I'm there. Literally, my brain is pulsating with fear. Right. I'm like literally losing my mind. I had to take my mask off to have my picture taken for my driver's license. And I'm like, and I'm like holding my breath while the woman takes my, I'm like doing everything I can to just get through this thing that I can't do at home. You know, and they're just out there, just like talking to everyone, passing out candy. What are they doing? Their dogs are on leashes. They're picking their dogs up off the floor, putting it in their lap. I'm like, the dog's touching the floor of the DMV, and you're like, I can't.
I wouldn't even want to do that to my dog.
It's just like, you people live in a different world than me. So yeah, sorry. There's my DMV rant. So there you got it.
And I'm sorry, I think I just cleared my throat right into the microphone. So
that's fine, man. Yeah. You pop it all you want. Poppity pop pop. We both have pop filters. It should be okay. I was gonna say, so originally I wanted to have you on, like, it had to be 6 months ago. I can't remember at this point.
I was thinking about it today, and I was like, that was at least months ago. It was at least, at some point in the last.
I was still quarantining at my mother's house. Mm-hmm. With her until we weren't vaccinated yet when I wanted you, like that hadn't happened yet. So it was a while ago. And the original topic that we were supposed to talk about, and I would like to, even though we both are completely woefully unprepared today and groggy as hell. Right. We were supposed to talk about Star Wars.
Right.
Which now I'm thinking about it is like, it's so far past due. It might actually be more interesting because it's not fresh anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly like nobody is. Yeah, right. There's
nobody wants to hear about.
There's not even anything on the calendar right now that like they. I guess there's a Boba Fett show coming in December or something, a few months from now. But they haven't there's no hype. There's nothing, anything right now. So yeah,
the Mandalorian's over.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's been over long enough that no one's even like thinking about it right now, right?
I mean, only to the extent that Baby Yoda has just become part of our culture. But other than that, I would say yes, the Mandalorian may as well be 5 years in the past or something.
God, what is Mandalorian without Baby Yoda too? We're gonna see.
Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder. I really wonder. I kind of want to see if you. This is suddenly turning into a Mandalorian like geek plot point thing. But I think like if you're gonna split off the two leads like that, then make it count. Do something. Go a season where you're trying to get them back together. Have it where it takes forever and you can make a big moment of them being back together. Whatever. Don't like third episode of the season that it's back to the status quo.
I don't think they'll do that.
I don't think they will, but I'm saying that's kind of a television thing to do is like end a season making you think, oh shit. And then you begin a season going, oh, we're back to normal. I think what they're more likely to do is find some way to follow up on Baby Yoda and say, now we have a new thread we can follow that's separate from anything we've seen before. But I do not want to see more digital Luke Skywalker. So I'm kind of afraid of what they might do with that. Even I loved that moment dramatically. I did not love the technological achievement of Mr. Computer Face showing up.
You should check out Corridor Digital on YouTube. They redid the face.
Yes. I saw that.
You saw that? Yeah. And it actually looked a slight bit better. It didn't look great, but it still looks a slight bit better. But honestly,
is this too deep geek? I went way deep.
I don't care.
Right away. Okay.
Whoever's listening, if you listen to this, you don't like it, turn it off, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like though, that's how we got to talking about it was because
it probably is.
Me and you have always I feel like we both love certain stuff about Star Wars, but we've always diverged at certain moments,
right?
Where like it's like a hard left right type situation. And I feel like that's how we first started talking about it, was the end of Mandalorian, because I really love Mandalorian and you did too, but I kind of didn't like that. Like the ending of Mandalorian was not my deal. I found it disappointing, which is such an unpopular opinion. Like even saying it on mic, I'm like, oh, I'm ducking, you know?
No, but I get your reasons for it. It's like anytime they step away from what we've seen before, it feels like this is what Star Wars should be doing. Then they find some way to double it back in and to try to like get the most power out of iconography that's been part of this movie from the beginning. And I do think that feels a little bit like they still haven't done that step outside of what we know and do something brand new. I mean, and Mandalorian felt somewhat like that, even though I do think a lot of people loved it because of how much stylistically it felt like the original.
It does
movies.
Feel like Star Wars. That's unarguable. I think the feel is right. I think that's all I wanted. Like the question, what do we want from Star Wars, was kind of the thesis I posed to you. And Mandalorian was a great answer to that. It was like testing those waters. Like, I guess that's not what I want exactly. I don't want the Skywalkers and callbacks anymore. Like, I like Baby Yoda. He could be another species and I would have still thought the series was as good.
Right.
If he was a baby, whatever, a baby alien that's cute, it would have been fine to me. You know, like the actual fact that he's a Yoda or a species like Yoda does not matter to me. Grogu, sorry, not Baby Yoda.
Yes, we could call him Grogu. But also the Force use, that was another thing that you thought maybe we were going to get away from that. And we didn't, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and I think there's part of me that's like, let me do some Star Wars therapy with you. I feel like guilty for not liking it. I feel guilty for not enjoying the ending of the show more. Like, why wouldn't I? Well, Luke Skywalker shows up. He beats the shit out of a bunch of robots, and the whole thing has been leading to him. You know what I mean? Like, it's all very deep, and you know, everything we've been watching has been built up. And I'm like, like it's.
I'll tell you what I love about that.
Great. The execution's great. It's not the execution. Okay.
What I love about it is that it tickles my childhood brain about Star Wars to picture deep space out somewhere in the just nowheresville of space. Luke is out like flipping around, just flying around, and he gets this beacon and he's close enough to go, I'm going to go check out what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the way that feels like that's the kind of Star Wars that I love. Like, I love the idea that could happen. I think if we hadn't just gotten all this recent Skywalker stuff, maybe that moment wouldn't have felt so like, oh, this again to you, you know, or whatever, that feeling of just it not working for you, like that they're bringing that back in. Because I do think I agree with what you're saying about let it be its own thing and don't have like the pinnacle moment be something that's like a Deus Ex Machina from the old days
original
or whatever,
trilogy,
or a nostalgia beat or whatever. So it's like, I think it's a really cool Luke Skywalker beat. I do think that it's part of if you want to call it the problem. I don't even know if I call that moment the problem. I call back to that question you had of what do you expect from Star Wars? What do you want from Star Wars? What is Star Wars? I was thinking today when I was like, well, if Bob wants to talk about Star Wars, like, what are we? But it's like, what does Star Wars even mean in 2021? I don't think they know. I don't think the people at Lucasfilm right now or Disney Lucasfilm, I'm not sure if they know. And I think it's because, and for me, I would say that Star Wars is just less fun. I still love it. I still will go watch a movie or watch a show and find things to like or not like about it. But it's not fun to talk about anymore because of the fan
Here I am asking you to talk about.
No, but I mean, I can talk about why it's not fun anymore.
Right.
It's not fun because of, and I'm not talking about the kind of friendly, like, disagreement we can have about it, because we're coming at it from this perspective of like wanting to like something, not bullshitting. But this it's like, you know, the overused phrase toxic fandom.
Right.
Like, I used to think DC Batman fans were the most toxic in that way, but I think Star Wars fans are honestly like,
oh no, they earned it. They earned it in the last like 10 years.
But I feel like DC Batman fans are the type to like review bomb movies that they don't want to succeed, you know.
They did that with the Suicide Squad.
But Star Wars fans are more likely to just pick each other apart. It doesn't seem to have as much to do with other franchises. It's like that saying, nobody hates Star Wars like a Star Wars fan. I think
they're also quick to tell other people they're not Star Wars fans.
Yeah, you're not a true fan.
Right. Like you don't understand Star Wars and you don't deserve to like it. They're like literally just straight up telling you you're not welcome and your opinion isn't welcome. So,
and you don't know because you didn't read these 5 novels, and you don't know because you didn't, whatever thing it is that's like. And so there's all these opinions, and I think you have different waves of it. You have the original movies, you have all the stuff that came after that, you have the prequels, all the stuff that came after that, and you have the sequels. And so there's 3 different waves of love and hate, to have.
And you can argue too, like all 3 of those trilogies do have their own time and feel. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like they really, it's probably a bad criticism, but they do all feel extremely separate.
Yes.
They don't feel cohesive to me. And I'm not saying this is not me saying I dislike them for that, but it does not register as like one 9 movie thing. Like I can think of every Jason Voorhees movie and they somehow have continuity in my brain, stylistically speaking. And there's more than 9 of those, but I think of every Star Wars movie and they don't. There's something that's very just separated about them.
Well, it's weird to love something or love a story, but like not love parts of it. Like I've never been the type, if I like a band and I like an album, I tend to like all the songs on the album. I don't usually have songs I hate or that I skip. Yeah. If it's an album and a band that I love, and some of that is that I love it, and some of that is I've decided I like this band, so I'm going to I'm going to listen to this album, and if there's a song that is weird to me, I'm going to give it a fair shot and think about why they did that, So it's hard for me to accept that Star Wars is now this thing that someone could say, "Oh, I'm a Star Wars fan, I love it," and you would not have any idea what the hell they like. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, yeah, no, and there are those people that are just like, I like everything Star Wars. They're kind of just sold on anything they do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should be one of those people. I'm usually that guy. Like I'm that guy that kind of is just like, hey, I love every Jurassic Park sequel. And I know no one says that. I say that. I actually enjoy every Jurassic Park movie. It's a rare thing. But I don't enjoy every Star Wars movie. Like, why does it bother me that I feel like that? And you know how, because like I feel like I feel like you're one of the few people that I disappointed with my opinion on Rise of Skywalker, like how much I have disdain for it, and like your actual disappointment in me. I was like, oh man, I'm letting John down.
I don't know if it was that. I think it was I don't think I could actually be disappointed in you for a movie opinion. I think it was more that it was a bummer to realize there was just not going to be a positive conversation in my life about that movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I know.
No one that I knew liked it that well. I have extremely mixed feelings about it, but when I have mixed feelings about a movie like that, I could have the fun conversation and the nitpicky conversation. Right. And I think it was just everybody that I wanted to talk to was like, oh, nobody liked it. And it's sort of, I don't know if you've ever gone to see a movie with people who didn't like it, and after the movie, you're kind of wanting to go like, I liked it when the guy went and it was cool and no one else is doing it, and you just instantly feel like, oh god, am I like a 10-year-old or something? But no, Rise of Skywalker is incredibly flawed, and the sequel trilogy is incredibly flawed.
Yeah.
From its inception on through to the end of it. I think there's a lot of Star Wars, feels like Star Wars in that to love, and different moments. And there's certain things that really made it work for me and made me kind of say, overall, I'm kind of glad they did it. But I'm just barely glad they did it. Like with a little bird's eye view, long look at that trilogy, I can't really say I love the trilogy. It's like, well, could I say I don't? Could I say I love the movies? It's like, I think I could say I love parts of all 3 movies, but I don't love the movies, And it's like, I do think that like we've talked about how The Last Jedi is like an outlier in a lot of ways. It's almost almost hurts that it's a good movie in the way that it is, because it feels like
our opinion on that is even not popular.
Right. Right.
But also, to me, it's ruined.
Yeah.
I love The Last Jedi, or I loved The Last Jedi. But the truth of the matter is, as time has passed, like I said, I don't like a sandwich where the pieces of bread to me are moldy.
Yeah.
Even if the meat is really good. And just looking at it from an aerial view, I'm disenchanted even with something that I really loved. So the whole sequel trilogy is kind of bunk to me. I was the Force Awakens guy that didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like there's moments in Force Awakens I absolutely love, but I was the guy that wasn't sold. I was like, I also hate JJ. So I didn't go in with good faith.
Yeah.
But I've watched it several times. It's not like I haven't watched it, and I saw it several times. But in the end, when I look back on everything, I'm like, man, I can't even really enjoy Rise of Skywalker anymore because I know where it goes. So I kind of just don't like the sequel trilogy, and it's a bummer, man. Like,
I think you mean Last Jedi. You said you can't even like the Rise of Skywalker anymore.
I meant Last Jedi.
Because I don't think you ever liked the Rise of Skywalker.
No,
that much. Not much.
I definitely like. It's filmed nice, and the acting's great.
It's such a sloppy.
The acting is great.
Movie.
The acting is super great. Like,
yeah,
you know that I've said plenty of positive things. I think Adam Driver's performance is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the acting is amazing. It's beautifully made. Like production wise, obviously, and but
it's such a weird story, and it is weird
so
story.
Yeah.
Not in the way we were talking about with James Gunn, where these herky jerky rhythms and turns and stuff make you feel like you're watching something that has like
purpose.
Someone behind the scenes who's commanding this story. It feels so much like
fixing problems
it up as they went along in a strange way,
making compromises every step of the way. It was like we have to fix so many problems and we haven't thought it through. And I think that's bad when you watch a movie, especially the culmination of all of the Skywalker saga, and it feels like they were just compromising it at every moment. It's like,
well, I mean,
that's not right to me.
Did you not feel that going in, that this movie is trying to be the end of a trilogy? Trying to be the end of a 9-movie series.
Yeah.
And it's trying to both wrap up these new characters, because by all accounts, none of the leads, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, none of them were signed to do more
than this.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
So this was the end of those. So it's like whatever was new is being wrapped up.
Yeah.
Whatever was old is being wrapped up. And because of the way that The Last Jedi ends, in a way that really could have been the end of the whole thing in a lot of ways.
It could, if that's where the trilogy ended for me, like that boy picking up the broom, I'm like, that's it.
But because of that ending, you have to come in on the next movie and make a choice of like, who's the threat? Who's the bad guy? What's happening here? And I think, and I know this, I think that
the dead speak.
I think at the end, I don't even mind that. I love the pulpiness of like between movies, this crazy thing has happened.
Yeah.
I just think it creates like, I don't like the creative choice of it. The way they executed it, I think, was kind of B-movie fun. And I do think that's one of the things that Rise of Skywalker has in it, is that kind of willfully schlocky fun like thing going on. But I will say this, that at the end of The Last Jedi, it seems to me that Kylo Ren is the villain. And it seems to me that by the time we've got the new movie, they've decided, no, let's make sure we redeem him in this.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore this feeling to me like a decisive moment at the end of The Last Jedi, where he like has every chance to take, like that movie gives him so many chances to take the hand that's being offered to him, and he slaps it away. So to me, I think that what fucked him up was crisis of conscience over having Kylo Ren be the villain. The fan reaction to The Last Jedi, which I don't think, even though it was a huge hit, I don't think Disney or Lucasfilm liked the fact that it seemed like half the world of Star Wars fans hated the movie, and
to the point where they wanted to erase it. Like,
but I also think Carrie Fisher's death hamstrung whatever they planned to do in the third movie, because I think by all accounts it was going to be the Kylo Ren and his mom story, and it was going to be her movie in so many ways. And when you take that away, you lose so much heft. And that series. Did you ever think about the way that by the time it was to the last movie, you had actors that were alive whose characters were dead, and like
actors who are dead whose characters were still alive?
And so it's
such
like
a mess, man.
They had to pull a sneaky little trick to get one of, I thought, the best moments in The Rise of Skywalker was the Han Solo moment in that movie. Yeah. And like that was like them papering over a hole in a creative way, but that was not meant to be his moment. That was meant to be a Leia moment. But anyway,
it's just I think Hamill even said that the misstep of the sequel trilogy is just the three of them were never on screen together.
How do you do that?
It's insane to me. And it's like, for okay, let me try to put this in words. For what the Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker think I want from Star Wars, the misstep of not understanding it to the point where the three of them never shared screen time in this whole trilogy is insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, because like Rise of Skywalker is purely trying to feed off of that. What you think I want from Star Wars. And yet it's like, JJ, did you not understand any of what you were trying to do? Like, I get what you're trying to do. I don't like it. I don't like what you're trying to do. But if you're going to try to do that, how about Chewie hugs fucking Leia after Han Solo dies? How about that, asshole?
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't seem to understand what you're even trying to do yourself. You know, like I know what you want, and you're not even giving me that.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's about the storytelling there. I just feel like it was some of the most. And again, people will talk about how the original movies were made without a plan, and I do think that's a valid point to make.
That is a valid point. They destroyed 2 Death Stars. I get it.
I still think what they came up with no plan has a cohesion to it.
It does.
And love or hate the prequels, I tilt more towards the negative in a lot of ways.
I tilt towards the positive.
But I think that, like, the attempt to tell a story with a plan and a plot that unfolds, like, you can't look at those movies and say that Lucas didn't have an idea for what 1, 2, and 3 were going to be. And
John,
it's like, if that trilogy has a strength to it, it's the fact that it kind of sticks to its principles of what they were trying to do as a story, and that you were getting kind of an auteurist look. I mean, you were getting George Lucas's plan for this story through and through.
How many times, I don't even know if you've seen me say this, but I said, in the end, I do prefer the prequels. I'm not saying I prefer them more than the originals. Of course not. But I prefer at least a solidarity of vision and a plan and new ideas to the grand execution of J.J. Abrams or even Rian Johnson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, those movies look better. They're better acted. They feel like Star Wars tangibly on the surface, but there's nothing except for The Last Jedi, really. There's nothing new there for me. At all. At least when I watch the prequels, I'm like, Lucas was trying to do something different. If he failed, I watch bad movies all the time that failed trying to do something different. You know, to me, I can actually get down with that more.
Well, this whole thing about the surface aspects, because I was thinking, like, what are the things I love about Star Wars then?
Right.
And I liken it to, like, when I was a kid and I loved reading comic books, but I look back on the comics I read as a kid, and I almost always liked the ones with the cool art more than the ones where the writing might have been good. If I didn't like the art, it could have been the coolest story in the world, but I would be like, it didn't
matter.
I just wasn't going to sit down and pick it up, you know, and plow through it. At my age now, I'm now into going back and finding, people say this run of this series was good, or this is a classic Batman story or whatever. I'm more interested in reading that now. And I've kind of noticed, like, I do think that over the years, it seems like Marvel is more likely to have these really shiny, really good looking comics with great art in them. And DC is a little bit more likely to have the writing be the emphasis, not across the board.
You're talking about just the comics, not the movies? But if you
just think about I just think in the comics. I'm talking about the comics.
Yeah.
Right. I should be clear about that.
Sure.
But I was like, I guess my taste can change. And, like, so I do think Star Wars is about this great mix. Like, the best Star Wars is this great mix of that flash and that surface movement and speed and excitement, but with some heart or some cohesion or some story that, I mean, as much as people want to make fun of, like, the even the original trilogy, people talk about it like it's corny, and it is corny in a lot of ways.
It is. They're B movies.
But what makes it work is that execution. So it's like you have these two things together. And I think the prequels have more of the ideas part.
They don't have the heart.
They don't, and they don't have the, like, as flashy as they are visually, I don't think they have the sweep that you get with more practical sets and more practical props and stuff.
Right. No, I agree.
And then I think when we're talking about feels like Star Wars, the sequel trilogy is like, boy, these movies look great. Put them on your television, man, they look fantastic. The sound is great. The effects are great. It's some of the best looking, like, art direction and design. Star Wars has always been, like, king of design, you know. But then the sequel trilogy is more like that kind of Marvel comic where it's like when I was reading it, I loved the art and I was pulled. I can't wait to look at these cool drawings. But when I look back on it, I'm like, I don't remember any of the stories from those comics, as opposed to something that might be kind of homely. I mean, it's almost like Star Trek versus Star Wars. You've got ideas.
How weird too to bring that up when it's like J.J. Abrams, right?
Right, but I mean, he made Star Trek feel like Star Wars, so it's like that's why he was such not a risk on Star Wars. But I don't want to belabor that point too much. I do think there's something about Star Wars that is about that whiz bang speed, that kind of like.
No, there is a golly,
some propulsiveness, some kind of like devising these great sequences that move. So, which I think that like if that's all you have though, that's an ultimately kind of empty experience. You definitely, you've seen me say, if the Rise of Skywalker was like The Mummy Returns, if it wasn't a Star Wars movie, if it was some movie that didn't have all this baggage, I'd be completely fine with it. It does have that whiz bang, swashbuckling, who gives a fuck kind of feel. And I enjoy those movies. Don't get me wrong. I love that kind of shit. No, I know you do.
I do. So
I think you might love that kind of movie more than most people I know, because I think that again, fun is like a value.
I understand that. When I used to like work at a video store, I could see those value in those movies for other people. You know, like to me, it means something and it's important. I love that kind of movie. So like, it's not like I think Rise of Skywalker has no value. It has no value to me as Rise of Skywalker. Although if it was some other movie, I'd be like, yeah, it's pretty fun. It's kind of like the ending is kind of like when he's like, oh, we're all here. We're here to save you. I think that's a terrible moment for Star Wars. But if it was in a shitty movie, Mummy 4 or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm down, man.
Well, it's just such a dumb, it's such a dumb calculation as far as like saying, okay, in the first Star Wars, we have this great moment at the end where one ship shows up and it saves the day. Right. This is better because it's a million ships, right? You know, and it's like, I'm not sure if that's the prequel had that kind of thinking behind it too. The prequel trilogy had that kind of thinking of like, if we have 100 things moving on screen at one time, that's the best thing you've ever seen, right? And you're like, no, I still want to be able to focus on one thing happening on screen. But I think that like,
but the fact that it doesn't work,
that making it feel like Star Wars maybe was overemphasized, and they did not think enough about having a story that was going to make any sense. Like when you look at the story, even within Rise of Skywalker, let alone how it caps the trilogy and craps the trilogy. I was about to say craps the whole series. Yeah. But the way that it is like, there's things that they killed Chewbacca, but they didn't really. Oh, they erased C-3PO, but they didn't really. You know, it's all these like things that feel like moments that could be big moments though, and could have been something that would have worked. And I don't like that they undo so much that it feels too cautious. Like it doesn't even at the end. There's a shocking amount of characters standing around hugging at the end of a saga. Do you know what I mean? It's like there should be more of a it should have been more of a war. Price. Yeah,
it should have been more of a war. And also, the character should have more arcs.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to actually like pick apart Rise of Skywalker right now.
You're right. We're coming to this so late.
It's so easy to. It's so nobody gives a fuck about Rise of Skywalker anymore. Really it's over.
You either like it or you hate it.
You hate it, and you can't convince me at this point. I saw Rise of Skywalker 4 times. Mm-hmm. So don't tell nobody listening to this. Tell me that I'm like a one and done.
You haven't given it a shot, right?
I've given it plenty of shots. And
that's what I'm saying. Like, don't say that you haven't given it a shot.
I hate people that see something once and then like 4 years later are like, it sucked. And I'm like, I kind of believe that you got to see movies more than once to even review them. Like, I hate reviewing movies I've seen once. Like, I really, truly do. I can't stress that enough. So I saw Rise of Skywalker plenty because, it's Star Wars and I'm going to do that. Even if I don't like something, I like going to the movies. But, I tried, man. And I was actually kind of sort of positive the first couple times. And then as those months went by, a year went by, I was just like, it just started stewing in my brain. I think I hate it more and more as the days go by. And it bothers me because I'm just like, God, how did Star Wars become this thing that I fucking almost can't stand to think about? And then Mandalorian came in and kind of cheered me up. And then the ending, it brought me back. I was like, man, is this where we're always going to end up? And I was like, I just don't like it anymore. If we're always going to end up here again,
right?
You know?
And that's what I said about it's not fun anymore. Like
it's not fun.
Like,
yeah.
It's like it's gone from and anything they do now is going to feel like so labored and like they're so cautious in a way about what they do. But I do think there's opportunities of some projects they've announced that sound like they could be something different.
Yeah.
But I think whatever like general excitement I had about Star Wars coming back, not just coming back when it did, when Disney purchasing it and everything, but like that it was going to be this kind of modern franchise where in my mind, oh, cool, they're going to finally get to do what they always should have done in Star Wars, which is just spin it out and just do stories and tales and, and they haven't really done that. They've done a lot of navel gazing and like setting up characters who don't really get arcs. Like how exciting was it to see John Boyega get cast and show up in that trailer? And then like even in The Force Awakens, which I know you're not a big fan of that movie, but
I'm a big fan of Finn.
He's delightful. He's
Finn
delightful in that movie.
He's delightful, and his premise is a fucking exciting thing.
Yeah,
I am so excited by the premise in that movie.
It's gold,
and it is.
And even
in
that movie, what he gets to do, at the end with like fighting for a minute and then getting all great. But then after that, like, so that's one of the few things that I think
his arc in Rise is like it's atrocious.
No,
it's literally it's atrocious.
Sense.
It's terrible. The way that he ends up in that trilogy, it saddens me to a degree I can't even speak of. I just cannot even fathom it. Yeah,
as someone who liked aspects of The Force Awakens and loved Solo, I realized that one of my favorite things about because I was thinking like, what did we like about Star Wars since it's come back? Yeah. I actually think that Lawrence Kasdan was one of my favorite things about the return of Star Wars because I think that whatever works about The Force Awakens, that spark, that life, those characters together, it's down to like whatever we want to say about J.J. Abrams, he's great at like casting like likable actors in a situation. You know what I mean? Like what he was able to do with those Star Trek movies. The cast is great. And Lawrence Kasdan gets the ways in which Star Wars is funny, but particularly the ways in which Han Solo is funny. Mm-hmm. More than anyone else ever.
I was about to bring this up too. I was going to say, where do I contradict all this?
Yeah.
Where does my contradiction come in? It doesn't make any sense. Solo is my favorite Disney Star Wars.
Right.
Movie.
Exactly.
So also, once again, I'm literally looking in a mirror saying that makes no sense, Bob, to what you're saying about Rise of Skywalker.
I might agree with you when I think about which one would I go to bat for the most as its own thing. I know a lot of people love Rogue One, but I kind of find Rogue One a little bit of a drag. So
I'm not a fan of Rogue One, and I and it's not because it's not an extremely gorgeous movie. It has a diverse cast, great all around for that. I just don't like the directing. It comes down to it. I don't like the way it's executed. It's got some really
he's not great with characters, like character warmth.
Yeah,
or anything.
I've disliked every movie he's ever directed, so it's really on me on that. And people love Rogue One, so not trying to take that away. But it is the plot to Spaceballs, basically. Anyway, it's like Spaceballs is kind of the original Rogue One.
That's funny to like go back. It's like Spaceballs, it's like we're in a mirror universe where now Star Wars is ripping off Spaceballs.
Like, let's make a serious Spaceballs Rogue One. It's like incredible. Like the fact.
Okay, I have a thing I want to say about that movie, and I think this applies to all movies that are like people on a mission and no one's going to make it out alive kind of movies.
Real Tarantino Star Wars.
I think it's funny how much. And I think when you think about horror movies, I love horror movies, but I think it's funny when I was watching Rogue One was the first time I realized like, oh, this is just like, if you're going to do a movie where everyone dies, just do a movie where everyone lives, except save yourself the trouble of coming up with the clever part close to the end where they figure out how to beat the clock or beat whatever's going on. Take any idea you have where you're like, and then they fight and I'm not sure what happens. It's like, hey, make that an everybody dies at the end movie and it'll blow their minds. They won't realize you just didn't come up with the fix,
Right.
And I think that I think what I admire about that movie is also something that I think can be kind of over admired about it, which is that aspect, which is that like it has the boldness to do that.
Yeah.
But it also movie. It's like, oh, that's all you wanted in Star Wars was just grimness. I don't know. To me, it feels like it actually, when you realize what's happening at the end of that movie, it has to have some kind of oomph, but it's all based on what you said, the cinematography, the look, the feel. It's not based on any life that was given to those characters, particularly in the script.
If the characters had as much expression on their face as in the cinematography, I would love the movie. But everyone in his movies talks like they're a brick and they can barely move and they have they don't emote. I can't stand it.
It's Gareth. Which Gareth? Is
the Godzilla guy, Gareth Evans or something like that. Edwards. It's Edwards.
See, there's one guy that's like really good.
Yeah, there's one guy I love, and the other guy.
And the other guy's like
names.
Great with visuals, but not great with actors at all.
Yeah, I didn't like Godzilla 2016. I didn't like Monsters. I'm just not a fan of his. And Rogue One was much the same, but it has its fans, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like it is worthless. You know, like, people love that movie, and as me and you, though, I think where we do meet is Solo. Like
Gareth Edwards, by the way, is the Rogue One.
Is Edwards?
He's the Gareth.
I always say Evans. Damn it.
Yeah.
I
Gareth Evans is the Raid.
Raid rules. Yeah, Raid is great. Yeah, let that guy do a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
I want to see.
No shit.
Let him do a Star Wars movie, please. I feel like the place we meet is Solo. Like for some reason, that's like our balancing act on everything, and people don't. And the fact that Solo was like the non-successful one that took such a beating. Like, I
saw so much like hashtag not my Han Solo, all that kind of shit.
I'm like, I'm not trying to be a contrarian here, but is everyone lost their, am I taking crazy pills? Is no one see how the Kazdan feel isn't what actually makes Star Wars, right? Is that not crazy to say?
And furthermore, that like making a story that has a like a swashbuckling energy to it, or a out of the frying pan into the fire type of thing.
To be fair, Abrams tried to do that.
Right. And I think he succeeded on scenes and moments.
There's that,
but like the stories don't hold together.
The opening scene of Rise of Skywalker is fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I sincerely do enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't feel right to me in the end, in the whole of it. You know what I mean? Like that whole like skipping thing, what's it called? Like light speed skipping or whatever.
Yeah. Hyper skipping or
hyper speed skipping, whatever. It's a totally stupid idea, but in a movie, it's exciting, and I totally dig it. But I don't dig it in the context of that movie. It's hard to put.
I know what you're saying. Words. I feel like that movie starts off and suddenly Poe Dameron is acting like this swashbuckling hero that you thought maybe he was supposed to be, but he wasn't really.
Right.
And now they're forcing it. And it's like they're forcing all this charm and interaction. And there are moments in that movie where I honestly do think the best moments of that movie outside of my tear-jerking father issues Han Solo moment is the just seeing Oscar Isaac, Daisy Ridley, and John Boyega. That they wanted to be on screen more together in a movie like The Last Jedi. And I think John Boyega, as much as we admire the craft of that movie, he has some kind of legitimate gripes about what was done with his character, that Finn sidelining. Like if J.J. Abrams completed it in the Rise of Skywalker by giving him this wonky arc, that the groundwork for that was laid by the way that he was the character who got kind of shunted off. I don't know. Splitting them up was very artful, and I think Rian Johnson had something on his mind. But I think I more and more I know what you mean about like as good as The Last Jedi is as a movie. It's weird to have a good movie in the middle of a Star Wars trilogy.
Do you remember and
I know that's weird. I'm not saying Empire Strikes Back isn't great, but it's weird to have a movie that's like this director's idea of what a Star Wars movie should be, almost as an experiment in the middle of this trilogy.
Of J.J. Abrams trilogy, which is right. Like I completely agree with you, and I think we all can agree if J.J. Abrams was just given all three, and he didn't want to do it. Let's be honest. It wasn't like they were denying J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams did not want to take a whole decade to make a trilogy. He wanted to do other stuff.
Right.
So I can't blame him for that either. But like, y'all should have figured it out, because you shouldn't have gotten a guy who was almost the antithesis to fucking J.J. Abrams to do the second one. Just like they're not compatible filmmakers, and that's okay. But why did you do that? That's a producing problem. Rian Johnson made his movie, and I think he made it well. And I think Force Awakens, for as much as I don't like it, is a pretty okay J.J. Abrams movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the producing problem is you let them both do it in the same trilogy. It was a bad decision overall. It's not about the individual movies almost at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was Disney's fault. I'm not trying to be a Kathleen Kennedy is everything wrong with Star Wars guy, because I admire Kathleen Kennedy and fuck
yeah,
everyone.
I don't really have any issues with her because she's made a lot of calls.
Dude, she's responsible for some of my favorite movies of all time.
That feel exciting too.
Yeah.
Like, and some of the stuff they've done with like replacing directors, it's like, that's not great, but I don't think that she's asleep at the wheel. And I don't think the idea behind a lot of these projects we're talking about has been the problem. I do think somehow going to war with no script is very strange. And The Rise of Skywalker, it's one of those, I don't think we'll ever hear the full skeletons in the closet like tale of how it was made. I don't think any of these Disney Star Wars movies are going to get those tell-all things, but I'm extremely curious about the development of that sequel trilogy, just as a Hollywood lesson in like expectations and managing things. Because
have you ever seen Abrams talk about Skywalker since?
I've seen a couple of interviews. He seems kind of shell-shocked.
we're not without talking about Joss Whedon. Yeah, he has that Age of Ultron energy where it was like, leave me the fuck alone. Yeah, it is what it is. It's over. I don't want to. you everyone who hates it, everyone who loves it is right. I don't care anymore.
Well, I mean, honestly, Daisy Ridley's that way. John Boyega's that way. Kelly Marie Tran is obviously that way. These actors that were like excited to be part of this thing are now like, again, and I think it's Star Wars fans that we're talking about here. When you're done with that, you're like, no, I don't want to have to talk to these people. And I do believe that probably every one of those actors knows, like, no, the lion's share of people who I've encountered because of this are probably of the sweet, appreciative type.
Right. Yeah.
But even then, the kind of adulation might be a little scary, and you might be like ready to move on from that shit. Yeah. But what's funny is Oscar Isaac is like, I got to move on from Star Wars to Dune and to Marvel. Like he's a guy who maybe he's not going to be able to go down to the market or whatever for the rest.
Hey, he jumped from X-Men to Star Wars.
Boy, let me also turn of his is one of the strangest. I felt bad for him when I saw him in that makeup.
Yeah, he's Ivan Ooze, but worse and more boring. I was going to say, to clarify too, for anyone listening, if I met JJ Abrams, I'm not like, I would never say anything bad to his face. I would never talk shit online about him. Yeah. Like, I'd actually be really nice to him. Like, like, it's not like I don't condone anything that happened with Star Wars like that. Like, I don't want anyone to think,
oh no, I don't think that I think we've got to believe that it's okay to say we can dislike movies. Like, I remember a friend of mine who didn't like Ghostbusters 2016. Right. And was like, it was a long enough after the movie and all the backlash had died down, and they were like, okay, I got to be able to say I didn't like this movie and not get shouted down because I hate women or something like that, you know. That it's just like, I have feelings about this movie. And so I think that, like, it's crazy to assume why someone feels the way they do, you know what I mean? Like,
but it's amazing. Star Wars, talking shit on Star Wars makes me feel like I have to clarify that I'm not. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that all those people are pieces of shit. With Kelly Marie Tran and everything, like what they did to her. Yeah. Like, I don't like JJ Abrams movies generally, but he seems like a cool dude. And, I'd hang out with him. Like, he seems like a good guy. I don't agree with, creatively. That's all. Right. I just wanted to clarify that, because Star Wars has been so toxic, and I haven't talked about it on a podcast in since like 2 years ago. We just haven't touched on it,
Well, I've been doing this little sideline podcast it's not a regular thing at all, called Star Wars Support Group, and we did an episode about the prequels, kind of, and then one about the originals, and then there's the one about the sequels. Is the one that I recorded a bunch of conversations right after the movie Rise of Skywalker came out. I've recorded a couple since then. It's hard to say anything about those movies because well, you may have liked them when you were walking out, but the more you hear about like how they were made and all the stories behind the scenes, and it's just, there's so many weird choices that were made in the creation of those movies that they feel sort of like it's almost impossible to have a clean opinion of. Well, them. And I'm just exhausted by it. It's like, at that point, like, I had just finished recording one of those conversations when you said something about coming on this show and talking about Star Wars. And I was like,
I'm sorry, man.
No. But it honestly made me think, like, what is the thing? Like this, I'm sort of winding it down. It's like, what if I never have to talk about Star Wars again? What would I say? So that's been like the liberating thing about this. Is like, maybe I'll at least pretend until until the Boba Fett show comes back, or
until
Obi-Wan or whatever,
Mandalorian,
until something cool is in front of me. But
And
I don't know
I'm
what
excited
I want
for
from Star Wars right now.
I'm excited for Obi-Wan. I'm legitimately excited for Obi-Wan, and that's really honestly Ewan McGregor, because like regardless that I'm positive, I'm prequel positive, while also acknowledging everything wrong.
Right.
He is such a shining beacon of light in both my childhood and that trilogy. I just am excited at the thought of him getting his due.
Yes.
And plus I'm just a huge fan of Ewan McGregor. So I do have, that is the thing about Star Wars I'm looking forward to. There is actually like me excited about Star Wars for something. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's not me going, oh, more Star Wars. I don't feel like that, but also it doesn't feel like it used to. And maybe that could be just we're getting old and the world sucks, but
I think whatever they could have pulled, like a trick they could have pulled, like when Star Wars came back and it was in this kind of Marvel age, you saw how in your head, like how they could kind of do that with Star Wars. They could find a way to keep some kind of ongoing saga going and just another installment in the serial, you know. And they didn't quite do that. They chose to do the trilogy films and the side films, and maybe the television shows are going to give us more of that, like a unique flavor for each outing. There's supposed to be a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie in development,
which I'm sure will be fucking baller. And I hate using that word, but you know it's gonna be.
Well, there's also there's a couple of series they've announced that sound really interesting. There's one called, I think, The Acolyte, which is supposed to be about like the origin of the Sith or something, and it sounds like it's a little bit, they've indicated it's a little bit more of like a thriller mystery kind of horror almost inflected thing. Now, you know, that will be cautious steps towards those kind of genre things, but that's the thing I want to see Star Wars really doing is
step away from.
Right. And when you first saw Mandalorian and it felt so much like a Western, it was like, it felt like, well, this might feel kind of small and it might feel kind of slow and it might feel kind of uneventful in some ways, but in other ways, it's got this immersion into the world that reminds you of some of these, like, you know, there've been great Star Wars comics and video games and cartoons and different stuff over the years that have told stories that do manage to deviate from the Skywalker saga. So maybe now we can actually see what can be done with Star Wars as a bit more of an open thing now that they've kind of put all that stuff to bed. But
maybe my eye roll with the Mandalorian ending was because I had put it to bed in my mind.
And then here he was again.
And it was like, and it's not just that, it's like, and I know you're one of these people too, so I'm not saying this against you, but like everyone's over elation over it and then constantly shitting on The Last Jedi as a comparative statement. I was just like, oh, okay, I think it was like me looking at the entire thing and going, I think I'm done with this.
Oh, you mean people being like, oh, this is what I want. This is the way Luke should have been.
Should be. Yeah, this is the way Luke should be.
I didn't feel like that. I know
you didn't. I know,
but I did feel like, oh, it's cool. It's cool and kind of clever that they found a way to get that moment that we didn't get before of seeing Luke like at the height of his powers. You know, I thought that was cool. But it was
also 40 years before what we saw in Last Jedi. So it's not. It's still the same,
and it's also not the full-powered Luke that we might imagine existed later. And also, I'm now to the point where I think what Luke does at the end of The Last Jedi is one of the baddest ass things that we've ever seen.
It's crazy to me that people don't see it as that. Yeah. It's fucking insane what he did, you know, and it killed him. You know, like it's a power unlike anything we've ever seen. But I know what they wanted, and they didn't get it, and they finally got it, I guess, to see. And it was cool. Like, it was cool to see. But in the end, I'm like, it's kind of just a sword fight. Like, I didn't have any. Did you ever have a doubt that Jedi Luke, full power Jedi Luke, could do what he did at the end of Mandalorian? Did you need to see it to know that it could happen?
I think I needed to see it only in the sense of like, it's cool to own up to what would be going on, that where we are in the timeline in this story, and they've sent out this beacon, and you start thinking, well, who could come to his aid? They can't just keep adding in Jedis.
No, I got that. I'm just saying.
So what I'm saying is, I think for me, the thrill of seeing it had more to do with like I said, it just felt like, oh, this is the way that Luke Skywalker would operate. This would be like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man kind of moment for him, just swooping in and being the hero. But I think
for him, it's a Tuesday.
Yeah. I think what bugs me more about that is taking Baby Yoda. I think if Luke had sort of saved the day and had a conversation and then split, I think that like that would have almost been cooler. I think the idea that they've split them off and that now the Baby Yoda, I just don't want to see that computer face Luke again. And I think that is the people reacting to that moment positively. It's almost like I want to make sure they know, guys, Lucasfilm, this doesn't mean you've cracked the case and you can now start throwing all these CGI versions of characters at us, because we don't want to see, like, we barely, someone who enjoyed that moment barely accepted what they put on screen because dramatically it made sense, you know? But as far as like, do I need to see Luke do all that stuff? No, it didn't. I mean, it was cool because of who he was and the way the moment was played, but it didn't feel like it was this next level moment, just because, like you said, you can kind of imagine, you can picture that him coming in and decimating a bunch of robots, you know,
like maybe it's me, but if somebody goes, Bob, imagine Luke Skywalker killing a bunch of robots on a spaceship. Okay, I could do it. It's like, I can do that in my head. It's cool. You could actually execute it, see it. It's fine, but it's not any new thought. It, like, sure, he could kill a bunch of robots. He's a full ass badass Jedi that went through all the shit we saw him go through.
Right.
You know, I'm arguing that in The Last Jedi, he does a bunch of things and is a bunch of things that I never would have thought in my head. Where is he now and why is he now? I would have never gotten there myself. I would have said something completely different. Probably a lot more boring, to be honest. A lot more like what the fanboys wanted. And I'm glad I got what I didn't ask for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah, like
you kind of want a story that you're involved in. You want it to have the power to do that to you, to like surprise you with something you didn't want and make you realize, well, this is in its own way kind of perfect. So
it also like reveals total immaturity. Like you see a lot of people when they talk about The Last Jedi say like, well, you've ruined the entire character of Luke. He would never do that. And I'm like, man, you must be younger than 25. Because I can tell you, you know, in my boring ass life, the man I was at Luke's age in the original trilogy versus his age in Last Jedi, it's gonna be a different human being. And you guys are gonna,
all the stuff that's happened, like all just the idea that like
he's been to war how many times? Like, you don't understand what this guy's been through.
Well, similar to Han Solo kind of being back on the run and acting like a scoundrel again. It's like, I thought that was, and I kind of thought that was a Kasdan touch, but maybe that was just part of the overall concept of saying like, who would this person be? Well, you know, like maybe they did have 10 or 20 years of happily ever after at the end of Return of the Jedi.
And he just got the itch, man.
You still have that moment. And then you have what happened with their son and with Luke, and they would, you know, he would flee. He kind of was running from his life in a way. But the idea that he would be back in that zone he was in when we found him, but handling it a little bit worse, even because he's lost a step because he's 70 or whatever. I thought that was like really brilliant. I was just like, what a bold thing to say, that yes, they did save the world, and 30 years later, they're just like anybody fucking else. They're also all split off in their corners. That's the one upshot of them not sharing a scene together, is that there is a kind of dramatic boldness in saying, what happens 30 years after the best happily ever after ever? Well, it's not. It can't stay that way forever, you know.
Well, let me compliment it with you. Let me compliment it with you though, because and I think this goes into play why we like Solo. Why I like Solo. Luke and Han in the original trilogy, two very different character archetypes. Luke has depth. He has an internal monologue. He has, growth. Like he is that character. Mm-hmm. Him turning into what he turns into by The Last Jedi, to me, makes a lot of sense. Han Solo backsliding into having a midlife crisis 3 or 4 times even makes a lot of sense to me too, because when Solo came out, I was the first guy to say before we saw it, I said, do not give him more depth. I don't want to see Han Solo struggling with anything. Like he's only struggling to get the job done or get the girl back or get whatever. He is not a deep character. He is kind of shallow and he's only kind of surface. And that's okay. That's kind of what I want from him. And I think Solo actually delivers on that, because Solo it's a surface movie. Mm-hmm. It's a real, well,
it makes a struggle, like trying to be a guy that in this movie, he's not going to realize that's not who he is.
Right.
But we know what's happening when she says, you're not this guy that you're pretending to be. And he's like, no, I'm not the hero, or I'm not a good guy, or whatever he says. Like, I think that I sort of loved seeing like this bravado, like this boy version of Han Solo who's full of bravado. I actually find it kind of touching to see like this younger version of him who just doesn't know what's going to hit him yet. And yet we know that even at a young age, he's this scrappy person who thinks on his feet and gets himself in and out of trouble constantly. And like, he's thinking like, when am I gonna finally hit a big score and like live that easy life? And we look at that kid and we're like, brother, 50 years later, your son's going to kill you. And not once did you get to live that easy life.
Right. But once again, his goal, Luke is searching for purpose. Han Solo is basically searching for money and fame.
Yeah. Well, he's searching for like, the next score.
That's what I'm saying is like, when Solo came out, a lot of the criticism was the fact that it wasn't heavy. It's light as a feather. And after the
kind of silly in some ways. Yeah.
Right. And after The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, where everything is like, oh my God, they're alluding to this and Skywalker saga, heavy family lineage, where it's just like, hey, and now here's a movie about a guy who's just kind of trying to make some cash and find his way through the galaxy. It's it. You know, he's like the guy that you'd be drinking with at a bar who's just going on another run. He's a trucker. He's a trucker, for fuck's sake.
And he's not even like a smooth operator. That's what I love about it.
Like, but it's amazing to me how like the fans that'll tell you you're not a real fan don't realize these exceptional differences between all these characters. Like, they'll even say the stuff about Leia. Why is like Leia doing the things that she can do? And it's like, did you not watch the original trilogy? I don't understand. It's perfectly in Leia's character to become a Jedi, a master Jedi in the original trilogy. It doesn't even, for anyone paying attention, you shouldn't even question that. Yet they don't want people to change at all.
Especially in the time since then. Like,
and the guy that shouldn't
30
change,
years.
And the guy that shouldn't change, they want to change. You know, it's like, you want Han Solo as a kid to be different than he was. He was a shallow guy in the original trilogy. It's a prequel. He should be more shallow. Like, I don't understand. Does anyone, like, you're telling me I don't like Star Wars when I don't think you understand Star Wars? Yeah.
And that's the hard part of that toxic fandom debate, is that you get embroiled in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Like,
it's very easy to get embroiled in it and to realize like, oh, I'm not saying you specifically. I'm just saying that it's so easy. Like, just the thought trap of that is like, oh wait, and there's no reasoning with this person. This person has like,
it's like arguing politics, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, the fun of it for Star Wars for me used to be the kind of communal feeling. And I do think that when the whole way of engaging with Star Wars now is to kind of argue about it, I do find it like, and again, I don't consider this what I'm talking about, but like,
no.
I find it sort of exhausting having that kind of like, you know, you want to say just like, look, buddy, we like completely different things about this franchise. Let's just not talk about it. But I think that like, yeah, there's significant overlap with certain folks. And I do think that like, so I don't know, if I were going to kind of put a bow on my thoughts about Star Wars and then never talk about it again, at least not until they announce next week.
Bullshit, you're going to talk about it again. Come on.
But like, the idea that what do I want from it right now is that what we were just talking about. I want them to move on and do cool things, and if they can come back to Finn or Poe or Rey in some cool, clever way. I love the idea of those characters becoming part of the mythos without the baggage of saying goodbye to Han, Luke, and Leia. One movie at a time. You know,
I don't think they're going to come back to them.
I don't think they are, but I'm just saying if like, I think that would be fine. But otherwise, I really don't want to see characters and scenarios that we're overly familiar with, and I'm worried about the fact that, you know, like, we basically got the Boba Fett and Yoda show, even though it was the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. Some part of me thinks like, okay, as cool and different as that felt in some ways,
it's still so familiar. It's like,
it's still very timidly stepping away from the, you know, the like, I mean, the Mandalorian armor, I think people think that armor looks cool, and that's why they thought Boba Fett was cool. And so like, when we saw the Mandalorian, I was like, oh, now we don't need to bring Boba Fett back because we finally have someone who seems cool in that armor. And then they brought Boba Fett back, and it's like, oh, now there's this whole Boba Fett's way cooler now than he ever was before on screen.
I was always that guy who was like, I don't get the Boba Fett love because in the original trilogy, he's nothing to me.
It's just the suit. It's really just the suit.
People thought was cool. He's got a cool ship and he looks cool, and he doesn't do anything cool. So, yeah, no, you're right.
I think they announced the action figure as like a giveaway before it was ever in a movie, and so people knew the name, and there was even that animated part of the
holiday special. Yeah,
that just hyped him as a character, right? So I think there was a lot of that. But then you see Return of the Jedi, or I guess it was Empire Strikes Back that he was in first, and he's barely in it. And then Return of the Jedi, he's
it's all it's like all suggestive too. It's like, oh, there's Boba Fett. I'm like, but he's not doing anything.
Right.
Even as a kid, I was like, I don't understand why this guy's so popular. You're right. It's design. It's just straight up design.
It's one line too. Darth Vader says, no disintegrations. So, we know that like Boba Fett's the type of guy who might kill you. And so knowing that he's after Han is like a little bit of added danger, but it's still, they needed like 15 or 20 minutes of him chasing them and there's being some character there for that not to feel like, oh, this is an action figure that we're seeing on screen. And we're talking about Empire Strikes Back right now, which is one of the best movies that anyone's ever made. But Boba Fett is not like a great character in that original trilogy. He's sort of a background character.
And I don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Robert Rodriguez episode where Boba Fett comes back. I definitely did. That was awesome. But to me, I don't know if it was awesome because of my love for him in the original trilogy. It was more like, that's the dude from the prequels.
Yeah.
Like it was that if it weren't for the prequels, I don't know if I would feel the same about that episode. You know what I mean? Like that episode to me read because I was like, okay, they actually established something like 20 years ago. And now we're bringing
the kind
it back,
of fun fan service
that was the fan service I liked.
Like seeing Boba Fett kick ass was like, you felt good for Tamara Morrison because he was getting a chance to do something fun.
Finally.
And cool. And you also felt good for the character in a strange way of like, well, it's kind of neat. But what I thought was strange was I thought he looked really cool in his kind of monk garb that he was wearing. And then when he went back to the armor, I felt like, oh, for some reason, since we already have the Mandalorian, I didn't necessarily need another guy in that armor.
And it's also like the Mandalorian up until that episode, I'm like, just with the episodes we have up until there, the Mandalorian, like you said, is already 900 times as badass as Boba Fett has ever been. Ever. So I don't really care about him coming back and wearing the armor as much. Like,
I have to try really hard to give a shit about the whole like Mandalorian mythos that they've created with like I thought it was cool in the opening episodes where it was all about this kind of ancient order that he was part of, but the whole idea of like the throne of Mandalore or whatever, I'm barely intrigued.
It gets a little bit Lord of the Ringsy there.
Well, it just gets a little bit far away from the stuff that has made this show fun, which to me has been the visual storytelling and the cool design sequences and all that.
It does a good job of explaining the abilities of the armor. I'll give it that. Like it actually is expositional in explaining what exactly a Mandalorian can take. Physically. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that happens after those episodes where I'm like, okay, if it wasn't for the explanation of the armor, I would be like, why is this dude still alive?
Right.
Like when he gets hit with by that big rhinoceros thing, it's like, how did he live? There it is. They explain it. Okay. So it worked as exposition, but I don't want to live there. I don't want to live with all that stuff. Like that's enough. I don't need more.
I'm worried that when you take Baby Yoda away from him, that's what you're left with is all the
just deeper dive into that.
I mean, I say I want them to make it count and keep them apart for a little while, but not if that's what we're going to get. Because again, I think that stuff is cool coloring to the background and having these other Mandalorian people that can show up and complicate things is interesting. But I don't find that stuff to be, I mean, to me, it feels like just another spin on Jedi. And that always felt, that really dragged the story down a lot, having this sense of like this ancient order has got to have this super serious conversation about this.
I guess also what I loved about Mandalorian in the beginning was it was like, number one, it's like Lone Wolf and Cub, but it's also, like you said, it evokes Western television shows or action television shows of like the 70s and 80s, which don't have much direction to them. Like the episode, Freak of the Week, Adventure of the Week. I kind of wish it was just that. I don't need the arc, Take me back to that and I'm fine. I'll be a happy camper. I don't need
he's the ultimate character who can like wander into a town and have like a case he has to fix or solve. And they've done that a couple times. And some of those have been great and some of them have been only so, but that could easily be a show that I just don't think you're right. I think everything is kind of arc focused.
I don't need the arc. Yeah. I don't need, as cool as it was seeing like Ashoka and all that. I don't need that. That's whatever. I don't care. I mean, I know other people are like, blah, like this, my life is now renewed, but I'm like, I could just do without it. It could
I just don't
be
want those to be the biggest moments where it's some character that people already know, because it already starts to feel like, oh, if I haven't watched this cartoon or that, I won't have the full weight of why that character is great. But I do think, there's got to be some kind of sliding scale between making it for those fans that want those moments. And as we've kind of alluded to throughout this conversation, of like having a story that is fueled a little too much by member berries, where it's
the Mandalorian is enough member berries. Like he is the perfect amount of member berries just by his look.
Then his best friend is a little Yoda. It's like, we're done. We've got, and then when they were hanging out with an IG-88 or IG-11, but it was that IG droid, like, I don't mind.
That should be his new sidekick.
I don't mind the iconography being familiar. It's the characters behind it. And I do think with IG-11, we got an actual character, even though it was a robot.
But that to me, either that IG-11 or the I Have Spoken guy, the Gary Busey guy.
Yeah.
One of those two should be his just going forward.
Aren't they both dead?
I Have Spoken guy's not dead.
I think he died. Yeah, he got killed.
Has it been that long since I watched it?
Yeah. No, but I do think
one of the IG droids should be that would be fine with me, because it's just silly enough. We're not basing it. It's not cute again. It's not like cuteness factor again. No more baby stuff. We did that. Mm-hmm. And that seems to me like that's a Western show you can keep going for a while.
Yeah.
It's this badass fighter, and he's got his own droid who can do all the tech stuff.
I mean, at least a season. They could even make a point
just one season
of giving him a buddy for a season that doesn't work out as well as Grogu did, because
it's a Doctor Who
watching that
formula,
relationship develop was great. Like the Grogu, what's his name? Jin.
Man, we both have just proven that we don't know.
Din Djarin, I think is his name, but that just if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, folks. But I think seeing that relationship develop really was. It really
cool.
It really was good. Like, that was some good stuff, and it was sweet. But you're right. You don't want to see them always have it be like he's protecting something cute.
Yeah, I don't want him to get like a cute baby, like Salacious Crumb or something next. Like I don't want
such a thing.
Yeah, right. Or cute baby the Hutt, a baby the Hutt. But it could be a Doctor Who situation where the Mandalorian just keeps cycling through new, sidekicks.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of how he operates. Like Doctor Who doesn't need a sidekick, but he always latches onto one,
Mm-hmm.
And 2 or 3 seasons later, he's like, "You should go live your life. You've had enough of these adventures." And that should be, I think, Mandalorian. Maybe less than 3 seasons, though.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't personally feel the need to see Grogu again. Like, outside of how I felt about the ending, that's a good place. That was an ending to what Grogu was doing. And if you want to follow that up, it should be some other way, maybe. I think, because he's going off to do something that's completely separate from the tone of the show.
He's also going to a situation that we know in 10 years blows up, or 20 years,
exactly,
whenever it is, blows up.
Right.
So it's like, it's interesting to ponder what that means for him. And I've always thought, when they catch up with him, it could be some far-flung scenario where he's a different character, basically. But we have the depth of knowing when he was a little kid, and he can meet back up with the Mandalorian at some point. But I think that time should pass in their stories before they meet up again to make that. And I just wonder if they're going to have the courage to do a Mandalorian show that isn't also the Baby Yoda show, though. I just don't know.
Yeah, because you really, really wonder, like, would it be as popular without Baby Yoda?
I mean, it seems like a huge risk to me, honestly, based on the fact that was the thing that people loved about the show. To remember that thing that took the world by storm and became a meme and like a toy craze and
overnight.
Yeah, well, we're just not going to do that. Like, I don't know.
Dude,
I mean,
Werner Herzog literally said it was like the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
what I loved was when he found out that for one scene they were doing a CGI version of the character. He said that it was an act of cowardice.
I mean, when you have Werner Herzog that devoted to Baby Yoda, it works. You can't deny that it works, because that seems so foreign of an idea.
But I mean, honestly, if we were to leave it there, that's the magic of Star Wars right there, is that Werner Herzog made the news, made multiple headlines. And anytime they would ask him about it, it's not like he said, "Stop asking me about Baby Yoda. I'm sick of talking about that stupid puppet." Every time he said, like, it is a work of wonder and beauty, and it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I think that like that is Star Wars right there. You know,
The
like,
world's the world's
Werner
premier
Herzog
nihilist. The world's
Yeah.
premier nihilist, literally. Like
the guy who would willingly, like, he would deconstruct like existence at your birthday party while you were sitting right there. You know, this guy is like, you know what, Baby Yoda, that's something magical. But honestly, that is like that.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I loved picturing like these actors on a set all investing so much into that little silly puppet. My favorite thing on the show is when somebody would like hold him and set him down, and they go from like the moving prosthetic Baby Yoda to like the one that you can set down. It's just like they always are look like, I don't know if it was you or somebody else I was talking to that said it's like they're playing with their favorite teddy bear. And I love seeing this in the middle of all these effects and all this stuff, that the magic that almost worked best of all is this like it's only the acting that's giving it life. You know, it makes you realize what Mark Hamill pulled off with the original Yoda puppet.
Absolutely.
How fucking good
and Frank
he was.
Oz. And Frank Oz.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, between those guys, but Frank Oz is on record saying that Mark Hamill made that performance. Right. Like his performance would not have worked as well without an actor who was believing it. And I would even
Frank
say
Oz commented on Baby Yoda.
R2D2, Mark Hamill was great. Like Mark Hamill was great totally. In that whole movie. Yeah,
absolutely. Props to Kenny Baker too. But
yes.
I don't even know if I've ever looked this up, but has Frank Oz commented on Baby Yoda? Has that happened? Do you know of that?
I don't know. That's a good question. It seems like
That seems like something he had to have been asked.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna like have an interview with Frank Oz and not ask him at this point, right?
I mean, or are we living in a world where someone would be talking to Frank Oz about some new movie he's directed, and whoever's talking to him on the junket doesn't know who he is? Surely not.
I would think. What do you think is his most popular credit? Would it be that, or I mean, like, yeah, I guess they would bring up Yoda before they would bring up Sesame Street and the Muppets and Dark Crystal and stuff like that, right? That's tippy top of like fame for him. I guess. I don't know. Are you looking it up?
Yes. What does Frank Oz think of Baby Yoda is one of those people also ask questions on Google. So here's what he says. I have nothing to do with Baby Yoda. The 75-year-old multi-hyphenate said in an interview this week, whenever this is from 2020, May of 2020. He says, but I heard it's very cute, and I'm sure Disney has a whole plan for it. He tacked on a clarification. I love doing Yoda. The only thing that bothers me is if people think that I only do Yoda.
Well, for the record, Mr. Oz, which I know you'll never listen to this.
Yes, we know that you don't only do Yoda.
I'm a big fan of his movies that he's directed. So yeah, I think of him as a director first before a voice actor, even though his voice acting has defined my childhood, you know.
Right. No, he's an unquestionable artist of voice acting. And I think you could make an argument that he's an artist of a director as well, but at the very least, he's an extremely like talented director. You know, he's made some really fun, well put together movies. Like I'm trying to think of my favorites. Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop's a masterpiece.
It's great.
Yeah. I love What About Bob? Bowfingers is amazing.
Yeah.
He's had missteps too, which still have some value. I like the Stepford Wives is okay, but it's very marred in the editing room. I don't know if that's.
He's one of those kind of journeyman types where there's certain periods where he's just making movies, and they may not be some crazy step forward. But
Death at a Funeral. I mean, he's
another one.
He's made some good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Indian in the Cupboard. Okay, sue me.
Yeah.
I saw it as a kid. I didn't even like it. But he's made some of my favorites, so I can't. I mean, Dark Crystal, he's co-directed it, so it's fucking classic. You know, like I guess people do approach him. They're just like Yoda, right?
Right.
He's like, God damn it! I've done other things. Although I feel like
I've also done Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy.
Yeah, Fozzie Bear and Bert and Ernie, man. Like come on, those are icons, right?
He's Bert, right? And Jim Henson is Ernie.
Yes, I believe so.
God,
don't you remember on Twitter, like it was a couple years before the pandemic, where somebody asked him about Bert and Ernie being gay, and he said they were not, and it was misconstrued as to him being demanding that they were not seen as gay, like it was like homophobic, and then he had to defend himself for like weeks. It's like, what are we doing, people? Like,
I do remember thinking,
that?
oh, he just stepped into that one, not realizing the joy people would have at him like teasing it out or being ambiguous. And he just chose to be honest and say, no, when we were doing them, we weren't thinking about that. That's kind of what
literally said what you just said. He literally said that was never the intention, but he said if you read it, he said it to a few people, was like, if it reads like that, that's fine. Like it wasn't anything malicious in any way, but people were tearing him down and stuff. And like, I was like, Jesus.
I think people his age don't recognize
the volatility of some things.
Well, not even so much the volatility, but don't recognize that when you are asked a question like that, it's an opportunity for you to perform your progressiveness or whatever, and you can, and I just think that to him, it was like, it would be an odd question or a thing that I'll give
for him. It was a boilerplate question. Are they gay? No.
Right. So, no, that was never the case, but it's like, I don't mean to take anything away from people by saying that. I don't think you realized how that reactive internet culture is. Cause I kind of remember around that time, he was doing that sort of like, he was appearing on Twitter. Got like a big response and was doing a little bit of that. I hope I'm using this right kind of thing that people do.
He pretty much stopped using Twitter that much after that. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He's one of those people who I think chose like, and maybe handlers come up to you and say, you know what, at 75, maybe Twitter doesn't need to be part of your daily diet. But I do think that the unquestionable affection and sort of, we love you, Frank, that came up with that. Like, it becomes a dangerous thing where it's like, if you make that mistake or put your foot in that particular thing, and then people come after you, the people who are saying no and defending you are like, well, I don't know if I like these guys. I like, if you were Frank Oz and you saw the people who were defending him for doing what they thought was homophobic, he might be
right.
Like,
yeah, you don't want. No, whoa, I don't agree with them either.
Please don't defend me, please, please. But I also think that it's just not in the consciousness. That's something that we understand, is that when you hear that question, the thing to do is to be playful and say, well, I don't know, they never talk about it or whatever, like, and leave it open because
it doesn't come up. Right.
But to them, it would have been an absurd thought, perhaps, because they were probably not sexualizing these puppets at all when they were performing them.
Like, I had never thought of that before, but I was like, when it was all coming up, I was like, I really had never thought of the actual physical act of Bert and Ernie fucking.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it's Sesame Street, and I shouldn't be thinking about it.
Well, the idea that they're a gay couple that lives together, I do think
it's positive for children if it's true. Right.
But it's also that you can just picture that. Like, it makes sense. Like, there's nothing in them that contradicts that idea. And I think that's why people have fun with that in like a meme kind of sense. It spreads. But that doesn't mean, you can necessarily retroactively graft that type of thinking onto every character.
How about this? Bert and Ernie should have a gay son.
Yeah. Hey,
or something like that, like, I'd be totally, like,
but I mean, even them being gay, I just don't think it would matter. It's like, hey,
it wouldn't matter. Yeah.
Guess what? Here's a new scene where they're gay. Did you notice anything different about the scene? No,
no, they're literally exactly the same. They live in a house. They have 2 chairs and 2 beds, and, and they bicker all the time. It's the same deal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was just more because of Frank. It's just, like you said, he's just old guy.
Now, Statler and Waldorf, though, those guys are constantly sucking and fucking up.
They have to be gay as hell.
Balcony.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing if they were just admitted to be completely?
What if it was like, no, but Statler and Waldorf were? If that was James Frank Oz's answer.
Why would, they're going to theater plays and stuff, right? I mean,
hey, man, I don't want to engage in these kind of stereotypes, but
it's a stereotype. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, but they are in a theater.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
They're old men. They're happy. They look like they're happy together, and they get each other better than anyone.
Yeah, right. You kind of hope for that.
I hope they're happy and gay together. Like,
they have so much in common. Yeah, maybe some joy creeps into their lives.
I think there's gay characters on Sesame Street now, thankfully, and there's trans characters and stuff. But the Muppets don't have that, so why not? Statler and Waldorf. There you go. What are we even talking about now? Yoda's probably gay. I don't know. No, because
that's a good place to say. Like, have we? Like, how did we get here in the conversation?
We're done with this. We're done with
talking about whether Statler and Waldorf are gay. It's like, we've arrived somewhere. I don't know if it's the place we needed to come, but but we're here now.
I mean, now that you said it, I really truly do hope that that's true.
Like I said, I think that's the only way those two guys might have any light in their lives. So I kind of wish it for them, especially, they've got those season tickets, obviously.
Also, they have to be like 150 years old at this point.
Yeah. Yeah,
because you got to figure what in the 70s they were like 80.
that's true. They were impossibly old then.
Oh, then so they have to be insanely old now. But they don't. The Muppets don't age either. Like Kermit's not like 70, right?
I don't know, but
John, tell me, you know the answer.
There needs to be a prequel trilogy about Statler and Waldorf. That explains how they, their whole thing, how they met.
That's it. Really, there's that like hard. There's that hard connection between the Muppets and Star Wars that I think that was always felt, especially in the 70s, obviously. I'm more excited for if they brought the Muppets back on screen at this point than I think I would be for Star Wars. Like that's a franchise I actually might care about more, like my excitement level is kind of degrading what I'm saying about Star Wars. Like the excitement levels are down. Whereas, thinking of old franchises which excite me more.
Well, I mean, Star Wars used to be a more special thing, and now they're trying to do a more of a constant stream, even though it's not as constant maybe as the Marvel stuff. But they're still, I think that is a thing that like within 5 years, 6 years, they released 5 movies. I do think that is something that
they took the special out of it.
Right. It adds to what we're talking about, which is that it didn't even feel like that much of an event by the time The Rise of Skywalker rolled around.
Let me ask you one last big thing.
All right.
And I'm asking you this because you have it at life experience that I don't. You're a father.
Yes.
Do you think what franchise, what thing, I say thing because I don't know what it could be. Do you think like his generation will look, what's their Star Wars when they're our age?
I mean, it might be too easy to say Marvel, but
I think it's too easy to say Marvel, but seems like that's the answer, doesn't
Marvel's doing it. I mean, it's like, the Beatles were the Beatles, Star Wars was Star Wars, Marvel is Marvel. They just
hit it right for a decade.
And they're doing it better than I think anyone ever has with regards to how many things are going on with it. That even if there's a Marvel movie that comes out or a Marvel show that's you find it mediocre, it doesn't bring down the average, or it doesn't feel like they've had that major misstep that breaks the style. Now, I don't think that the Marvel movies visually, I mean, there are some great visual moments throughout these movies. Yeah. I don't think they're quite as bold. I don't think they're quite as like the design that I was raving about with Star Wars a minute ago. Like, I don't think that the Marvel movies quite have that aesthetic beauty down.
Some of them do.
Some of them have moments of beauty, but there's a same, like part of what makes that universe work is how same the movies
I think the more auteurist ones kind of hit that, like Guardians or even like Ragnarok, they kind of have those moments that are really, gorgeous in ways that like some of the other more boilerplate ones aren't. Right.
But with that said, I think that it's still the way that Marvel has this storyline going where people are really interested to see what happens next, and the way that like the Thanos snap became kind of a cultural thing, and you don't have to have seen the movies to understand the context of some of these things. So I do think, like, I remember when I saw the first trailer for the, maybe it wasn't the first trailer for the Avengers, but the first one I saw had that moment where Iron Man is falling and the Hulk catches him and like drags down a skyscraper, but like uses the skyscraper to drag his fall, which is slowest fall, so that they both live. And I remember seeing that, and before having seen the movie, but just having loved comic books as a kid, I was like, this looks like modern myth making to me. I mean, that phrase just came to my mind. It's like, this is modern myth making.
Right.
And I think Marvel has done that, especially with Iron Man and Captain America and a couple of the other characters. They've created these iconic characters for audiences, and
out of characters that weren't that big a deal before this started,
and that have been around for a long time and didn't have that kind of status. So I think you got to hand it to them for that reason, that like, like in a weird way, compared to Marvel, Star Wars feels slightly more niche, and that's a weird thing to say because it's
Star Wars feels niche, like that.
But it feels a little bit more like it's still kind of for nerds or something.
Yeah.
Whereas Marvel feels much more like it's the big tent, it's for everybody.
Like my aunt likes Marvel.
Yeah.
My 70-year-old aunt can watch a Marvel movie. She's into it. Like, she's into what happens. That's not normal.
Yeah.
My mom knows who Iron Man is and loves Iron Man. Like, if you asked me in high school, like, one day, do you think your mom is going to love Iron Man? I'd be like, my mom doesn't even know. No, never. But now,
I mean, if you'd asked me, is anyone going to know who Rocket Raccoon is? Like,
right.
I would have said no. And in fact, he's beloved, so.
Yeah. Do you think it's weird too? Like, how even with both franchises right now, with Marvel and DC, we're on the precipice. Literally with Loki, we've already seen it, but with the Flash coming up and everything, we're on the precipice of now. We've had this whole like we've lifted up comic books as our new pop culture, and now we're about to re-dive back into everything with multiverses in both giant franchise. Like, there's part of me that's super excited. Part of me is also like, I don't know what the third act of this all is, because the second act is all multiverses. I don't know where you go from multiverses. You know, like, what do you do after that?
I love the way they introduced that mind-blowing concept on Loki. The way that they said, like, look at what we're showing you is now possible. We're not even telling you what's possible. We're just showing you how crazy it can get. I thought that was so cool and exciting. And that episode wouldn't have worked. There was so much about that episode that wouldn't have worked if it hadn't been done just the way that it was. Like, I thought Jonathan Majors was great. I thought the way that the amount of information they gave us, the way that, like, okay, we're seeing a variant of a character that we're going to see more variants of. Yeah. And if you're a comic book fan, you know who some of his variants might be and how exciting that is. But like, this felt like what they didn't do with Thanos, frankly, which was like, by the time Thanos showed up, we really needed to see something special. And yes, they created something special with James Brolin's performance and the effects and everything. When Thanos shows up in full flower in Infinity War, he's the star of that movie. And so
that's his movie. Yeah.
But before that, they had not created as much anticipation as I already have for Kang. Like,
I think the difference is
the Marvel thing.
They were kind of they didn't know where the map was leading to,
right,
until a certain point, whereas now they're like, all right, now we know what we're doing. Every segment of this thing has has a point now, right? So now they're like directly pointing at something. So,
and this will be maybe the big test, in the same way that Infinity War and Endgame were, of like that franchise's viability, of like, how much are people still going to like this? How many times can you have the biggest thing ever happen and still have people be invested? I think that, like, I don't know. I just think that multiple versions is like, it's a cool thing that buys you a lot of openings for stuff. If there's characters you want to bring back, you can. If there's things you want to fix, you kind of can. But I think Marvel thus far they have moved forward in a way. Like, I don't think they're going to not tell a story. That's the one thing I'm kind of hoping for, is that with all the mind bending stuff and it's going to be a lot of surface sizzle, all these multiversal things. But they've always, with these movies, come down to like a core character or group of characters and what they're going through. And at their best, they don't lose sight of that in the movie. Right, so like this new Spider-Man movie that's coming, that's supposed to have all these hints of the multiverse. Like, I feel so encouraged by the fact that we know that Tom Holland can kind of hold down the center of a movie like that and be human. We know Paul Rudd can be human in a movie. We know all these performers can do it. So I think that, like, that level of like populist engagement in what you and I think in the past have kind of called the soap opera of these movies,
TV show, soap opera. Yeah.
Right. Having people engaged in that, and then also being able to say, every now and then one of these movies comes out and it's actually inventive cinematically or visually dazzling in some way. It's hard to know what's going to stop it. Back to an earlier thing that I think we were talking about on the show, though, movie industry right now doesn't know what's going on. Honestly, I don't know. Like, we may have seen what could lead to the end of these movies, where they can just spend as much as they want to on them, and then they know they're going to make back $1 billion or whatever because of what this means. Like, right now,
or they might be scared of doing that now.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But also, you would have to really jumpstart the theatrical experience. Like, even if, as we hope, things are going in the right direction, which culturally and everything in our country, it doesn't seem like it is. But like, let's say that we do end up back in theaters. Like, I don't know when it will be the same situation that it was. And so many of the movies that are still coming out that Marvel is just putting on the calendar now are movies that were made with the idea that they were going to come out and have a $500 million opening weekend and make $1 billion in a week, And
you can't do that with streaming. You just can't.
Yeah. And you can't do that with the audience. Even if a movie stays in theaters for months now, which it might be what we're seeing more of, you still have this backlog of stuff that you were trying to get out. Like, right now, I honestly feel like Marvel is going to try to, as much as they can, just put stuff out just to get, like, they have plans and things that are supposed to come out at a certain date. I almost
it's like a schedule, right?
Yeah. Like, are they going to pull things off the calendar again if everybody goes back into hiding in a couple of months, or are they just going to bullheadedly go ahead and say, like Christopher Nolan was with Tenet, and just say, no, this is coming out in theaters.
They're doing that. They got into trouble for the Shang-Chi comment.
Yeah.
Which I didn't read up on, but
is it Bob Chapek, he's a Disney or Marvel exec who
he called it an experiment,
an interesting experiment or something like that, talking about the fact that Shang-Chi is coming out as a theater only experience. They're not doing any kind of premium home on demand.
Right when when Delta is like going to be peaking.
Yeah.
I get what he's saying, but also I'm not going to step my foot into that argument. I don't understand it that well.
Well, it's 45-day window before it goes home at this point. So for me, it'll be a real test of whether I can literally wait a month and a half to see a new Marvel movie. But at this point, I feel like I possibly could, but I don't know. My son and I both
I can.
Yeah.
I can totally wait. And it's not because of my excitement, just time doesn't have the same meaning it used to.
Right.
So,
that's true.
And also I don't feel like I'll be missing much, as in my friends, the ones that I talk about movies with, most of them, 90% of them will not go to the theater to see Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of the movie, just they won't be going to the theater. So if no one's talking about it, except for a few people on Twitter, I don't care. I can wait.
But that's going to be weird for a new character, new Marvel movie.
Yeah,
when you think about the launch of Black Panther and Doctor Strange and even Captain Marvel, it's like those movies felt like big deals to people. So it's especially because the Shang-Chi, is it Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi? I've been saying
I think it's Shang because I remember seeing something Shang is actually like a bad American.
Oh, okay.
It's Shang.
So I'll say Shang-Chi. I hope I'm not
I hope we're saying it right. Yeah.
But I
can say Master of Kung Fu.
Well, I mean, it's maybe to the point of what we're saying right now. The representation part of this movie is such a beautiful,
important thing,
an encouraging thing. It's a little bit of a shame. Even if the executive hadn't said that about it being an experiment, it's a bummer to think this movie is coming out. I've felt this way about a lot of movies that have come out in the last year or so. Where it's like, oh, that movie just didn't get its big moment. It's kind of red carpet moment. It's moment to feel like a big thing. I'm not feeling sorry for these people, and the movies are still coming out and they're making millions, but yeah, it's hard to know what's the real hope.
What do you do?
What do you have? But I mean, for this movie, which is, I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see it, but a lot of people are going to have the attitude of wait, who's this character? What am I supposed to think about them? And maybe word of mouth would be what would.
Well, you've got that. You've got the question of who this is versus the Delta variant pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
And when you have those two questions together, it's not the same question as here's a new Thor movie.
Right.
Well, I know Thor. I love Thor. I'm going to take the risk. Whereas, you got somebody new. It's not fair. It's not fair. You know, and believe me, there is nothing on this world I would want more than for us to go to a preview screening of Shang-Chi with a packed house. There is nothing more I want in this world, and to feel safe.
Right.
I don't have high hopes for that. Or anything like that, maybe for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Sadly, and I don't know what else is on Marvel slate next. Like the Eternals, I guess.
The Eternals in November and Spider-Man in December. I think we're going to see some of those things get moved back, honestly.
Just I really would love to see those all. I'm excited for all of them, but I don't have high hopes to see that in the theater, and it sucks because Spider-Man, that's the one where if we're in a good moment, that could actually make a lot of money. I think if there's a dip or it's actually waning. But like you said, the Eternals, that's not something you'd want to release in a shaky time.
And I don't think they've done enough. That was a nice looking trailer, but there has not been enough. I don't think
it's
the
not
Eternals looms large for people right now. I don't think
also
it's on its way.
The Eternals trailer also is a little bit grim. As opposed to some of the more fun stuff
kind of
that Marvel
somber,
has,
at least, right?
I don't know if that's something people are searching for in a time of complete darkness and when the world sucks and everything is shit. There's a new war that's going to happen. You know what I mean? People they're probably looking for candy canes and some fun. But
no, I know what you mean. Even though I thought that movie looks really good,
it looks awesome.
I don't know that this movie is doing this. Even with that, I don't know if this is doing enough to sell itself to a person who's how does this connect? It's not the same thing as seeing Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man again, or Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. This is it's all new. It's great cast though, and I love everything I've heard about Chloe Zhao being allowed to kind of make a movie that she wanted to make.
Totally.
Not being, and now she's an Oscar winner. So I kind of feel like that's a cool, I don't know. That's a cool,
in a normal world, it
angle
would be,
to have on a Marvel movie.
I think it would be incredible. Like in a normal release world, it's just
right.
What do we do? I don't know. I don't have any answers on that because I'm also, like for me not to go to the movies means things are bad.
Right.
Like me not going to the movies for the last year it shows you just how bad things are. Because when I go back to the movies, it means that things are getting really okay, or I have faith that they are. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen or with the market, like the Suicide Squad, something like that. If they make something like that again, they're gonna ask for like 1/4 of the budget. You can do it, but
yeah,
it's got to be 30 million.
Yeah, it's got to be super cheap.
Yeah, you can't do that for 200 and we're releasing it on a fucking streaming service. No, it's not going to work. Like it's just not going to work. You can't do that. Anyway, I just want to say thanks for talking Star Wars with me, man. Like I know it's kind of a dusty subject, but I kind of wanted to do it just because I feel like I needed some closure with you about some stuff in the past.
Yeah. Well, no, I knew that. I kind of knew what you were going for, and I've had that thought before too, of just like, let's just have this conversation. Like, I just kind of want to have this chat with somebody, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's not connected to anything in time. But in some ways, I think we can only have the conversation we just had at the point where there's nothing new really on the horizon, and we're kind of going through the rubble, so to speak. Because if there were something new, it would dominate our consciousness, and if it was good, it would seem like, oh, Star Wars is good. And if it's bad, it seems like, oh, Star Wars is bad. But when you're looking back at all of it, you realize what a crazy, it's
rocky. It's been rocky.
Toxic soup it is of
like, I mean,
legitimately great things. And then legitimately like poorly formed ideas that were given a giant budget.
Like my last word would be from a cynical point of view of a non-fan that kind of still likes the original trilogy, you could argue that nothing really else good came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I mean, goodwill is the only thing I think powering the prequels and the sequels for even us. Like, you know what I mean? Like the cartoons are pretty okay and everything, but like, it's all kind of goodwill still being sucked out of those three movies.
Yeah.
Where you could argue just nothing else is really that good afterwards. Like it's okay, but it's not.
I mean, at what point? Yeah, we'll come back to this in 20 years or something and just say like, what is the batting average of this franchise?
Right. Yeah, it seems pretty low, to be honest.
Yeah,
like
honestly,
yeah. When you take it all in, like Mandalorian's good and everything, but
if you're giving like thumbs up, thumbs down, you're right. It's like it's
pretty low.
It's a tough world.
I when I say I like the prequels, I still probably give them a thumbs down, and that's what I mean. Like even my optimism now is not even good. It's like kind of like, yeah, I know they're terrible. I know it's never been good since. It's like Return of the Jedi, and then just like living off a fucking theme song for like the last 25 years, a theme
song, and that logo looks great, and the text.
Right.
There's so many iconic things that make these movies fun to go see and get you all
and lightsabers, the greatest weapon ever.
Right.
Yeah. It's like living off those things, but it's just like it never grabbed it again. It never grabbed that magic, like it had before. And it's hard to argue with a cynic that it has.
Yeah. So in conclusion, magic is dead.
In conclusion, don't grow old.
Yeah.
Stay young. And that way you still like things. Plug stuff. What do you want to plug? I mean, obviously Movie Schmovie, right?
Yes, Movie Schmovie is the long-running movie discussion podcast. In fact, we just did sort of an ancillary Movie Schmovie. I loved, like, we haven't done a post-op. It's funny. I don't think we talked that much about we did like an episode on Rise of Skywalker, but we've been sort of like,
I listened to it.
Like Marvel has dominated the ongoing movie conversation much more in recent years than any other franchise. And it's weird for me growing up as a Star Wars nerd to say that, because it's funny to now realize, like, yes, I do. Like I said before, Star Wars is a little bit more little bit more niche. There's fewer jocks that could tell you what happened in a Star Wars movie.
That's so weird to say.
Then could tell you what happened in a Marvel movie. That is weird to say. So yeah, Movie Schmovie. Just look for us wherever you look for things. We're on YouTube. We're on every podcast platform. And also I have a similar thing to what you have here. If people like what you do at Thunder Grunt, which is this kind of master feed with different shows on it, they can see my version of that, which is just called FYIZ. You look for that wherever you look for podcasts. And that has, in fact, soon, I think I'll be putting out my episode, the final episode of Star Wars Support Group, which deals with the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy. And I just hope I'm able to get it down below like 3 hours, because there's so many conversations I've had, but I just don't have the heart to sit down and listen to these things again.
Did you guys like go through the actual movies? Like we were trying not to do that. You went through the actual
did, but we didn't really, because it's impossible to talk about just one scene when you could then jump to another. So that's the thing about the edit. It's going to be a very weird, giant episode. But after that, truly, will be the final conversation I've ever had about Star Wars. No. But also, I want to say my band or my musical entity, identity, that should be Sci-Fi, SIGHFIGH. You can find me at Bandcamp. And last but not least, there's a lot of stuff that's about to be happening that I can't talk about yet. And I guess I would love for people to follow me on Twitter at Gianni W or Instagram, Gianni W. It's GIANNIDUBYA. And follow me there. And very soon I'll be announcing something big that's coming up for the fall. But right now I can't do that yet. So,
okay.
I think that's everything. My
podcast,
my music, my podcast feed. Is there anything else I do, Bob?
You say a lot of jokes on Facebook.
Yes. I make a good omelet.
Okay, so your omelets, where can we go for those?
Yeah. I guess just
Grubhub.
You got to be my wife or son.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess so. If anyone out there wants to remarry John, I guess you could have good
become my wife or my son.
Right. Okay. All right. Well,
what about you?
What, my plugs?
Yeah.
This podcast. I mean, anyone who's listening, they don't need my plugs. You can follow me on Twitter, whatever. But yeah, thanks, dude. I mean,
oh sure,
I appreciate it. I'm sorry this took 6 months to get to here, but I had to talk to Michael Winslow.
I know how it goes when Winslow is on the horn.
When a member of Police Academy wants to do something, you push everyone else back. So
when's Tackleberry coming on?
I think he's actually deceased.
Oh shit!
That actor's deceased.
The
one. Him and Hightower. Deceased.
I was about to. He's the other name I could think of.
Deceased.
Yeah. Oh no! Wait. Actually, I can think of Mahoney. He was the.
Dude, if I could actually get Gutenberg, you don't think I would?
No,
I mean, I'll ask. I don't even know where I would. Does he have a Twitter account?
I mean, obviously Police Academy, but what other? If you had Gutenberg, what other movies would you be like? I got to talk to Gut.
Oh, High Spirits.
High Spirits.
Absolutely High Spirits.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe Three Men and a Baby would come up, because Three Men and a Baby was directed by Leonard Nimoy, and I want to know what it was like to be directed by Leonard Nimoy on a non-sci-fi film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to know. So I would talk to him about stuff other than the obvious, but he was Mahoney. That's what he's known for, right?
I think, he's got to know that that's the main thing. You know what I mean?
He's made fun of himself for such, right? Yeah.
Not just known for that, but like that, his persona is that smug, smarmy, smart aleck guy. You know what I mean? Like, kind of
like
a more 80s version of the slops versus snobs guys from the 70s or the early 80s.
Honestly speaking, if you made Guardians in like the 80s, he could be Star-Lord.
I mean, I could see that. I could honestly see
it's not crazy. Is what I'm saying.
Based on the type of roles he was getting, a lot of people would be going Gutenberg, but he might have been able to pull it off.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be better or worse. I'm just saying the casting would be there. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, this reminds me. Next time we'll have to break down the plot line so we can pitch our Sean Gunn, Ted Raimi buddy movie. That was
yeah. We didn't talk about that. Right. The Sean Gunn and Ted Raimi. Right. That'd be great.
Yes.
I mean, they need to work together, right? I mean, although Sean has had a lot, he needs like another decade, I think.
Yeah.
Because Raimi's been at it. Ted Raimi's been at it, right?
Well, that's why the energy, you'll have like the Ted Raimi is if they're buddies, Ted Raimi is definitely the more world weary of the two, and Sean Gunn is the more puppy doggish of the two. So like if they are playing brothers, you know who the older brother is, you know who the more serious one is.
And they're both like they've both been in Marvel movies that their brothers have made. It's like perfectly,
and they both are like willing to put on like a suit with green dots for mocap, or like Ted Raimi getting in all those latex costumes over the years. They've been put through it by their brothers. So
imagine that movie. And then if it was a trio, Bruce Campbell.
That would be like the last act reveal. He would be the Sam Jackson of this series. He's the guy who comes in at the end and says, "We need you for a mission."
Right. I'm just hoping. Look, I'm not trying to restart the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping.
Let's record another one. I think that was kind of a dry run that we just did.
Let's do another 2 hours.
Let's do one for safety.
Yeah, right. In case this didn't work, in case this didn't record. My hope, above all hope, is that if we're getting variants of characters, I'm saying it right here, right now, I can't see a world in which we don't see a variant Doctor Strange that is played by Bruce Campbell in multiverse. It has to happen, right? I mean, what world would it be where Raimi didn't do that? Give that gift to us, right? That's a gift. Come on, just even
wasn't it hinted that Mysterio, that the character he was playing in the Raimi Spider-Man movies, because he was a different cameo in each one. It
was hinted that he was Mysterio, yeah.
Right. So they could, and I think Mysterio has something to do with the new Spider-Man. So they could give us a multiversal Mysterio and have it be.
And he finally delivers on that rumor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But come on, wouldn't you want to see him as Doctor Strange?
I definitely would. You know what I would want to see is some of the castings that didn't make it for some of these other characters. Like,
that'd be cool.
I've always been tantalized. I love Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. I really think, and I honestly think that James Gunn's the only one who gets the soulfulness of that character. That as much as I love the Endgame and Infinity War, I feel like Star-Lord is treated much more like a joke in those movies than he is.
He's treated pretty mean and disregarded pretty hard.
Yeah, it's as though whereas his heart and soul have so much to do with what makes the Guardians movies great. In those movies, he treated him like, he loses the woman he loves, and when she comes back, he gets hit in the nuts, and it's funny. And it's like, yeah, it is funny, but it's like there's nothing else for him in that story. But
there's no redemption. There's no redemption.
Yeah, I love that role, that performance. But Glenn Howerton was supposedly in the running for Star-Lord too, and I would love to see the snarkier, darker Star-Lord. I just think that would be fun as hell to see. So
just standing up with a poster board that says the Star-Lord system.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't do that, but that basically, yes, he's just Dennis as Star-Lord. That'd be fucking incredible.
You know, what's funny is we lately, every time on Movie Schmovie that someone says the implications, we chuckle because we can't say the implications without thinking of Dennis's, how it's all about the implications.
Right. I mean, hey, you know what? The things, you might get that. I wouldn't even doubt it. You know, I wouldn't doubt it, but I want Bruce Campbell.
No, I'm with you. I want him to have something more to do. And I do think you're right that Sam Raimi doing that actually is one of the more tantalizing movies on the horizon.
Dude, I mean,
it's just Sam Raimi doing a movie with that kind of
Raimi's a god to me. Okay.
Yeah.
He is. And I'll take anything. But
I just think that for him to decide to play in this sandbox, again, that he's like up for the fun of it. And he's like, the performers that are going to be in this movie, the tone of it, everything about it sounds interesting to me. But mainly, I'm just hoping that he's able to like make a Sam Raimi movie the way that, say, Shane Black was able to make a Shane Black movie, and James Gunn and so forth. Like, and some of the best ones have had a flavor based.
Have had that flavor. And I actually am a huge fan of Doctor Strange, the movie. I really love that movie.
Yeah, I do too.
And Scott Derrickson is a really talented director. And I was sad when he left.
Me too.
But when you say Sam Raimi's going to do it and it's called the Multiverse of Madness, it's like, well, it's like, I didn't get the thing I wanted, but Jesus, fuck, I'll take this thing I'm getting.
I think even Scott Derrickson understands that. He had like a day or two solid where we all felt really bad that he wasn't on the project. But the second, I'm with you, when they said Sam Raimi might take it on, I was like, if there's anybody that could make me turn my head away from almost any other director, especially, again, we've talked about how populist these movies are. Sam Raimi playing around with that kind of like
power.
I just think he would know, like, he's been there before with Spider-Man. He kind of knows how to manage it in a way. I don't think they would bring him in and not let him do some of his stuff, so I don't know what to expect, I mean, I really don't know what visually and tonally to expect.
I feel like at this point he's earned, it's almost like he's earned, like when he did Spider-Man, it was a surprise to most people. Like, who is this guy? There was a really who is this guy thing when Spider-Man came out. But now it's like he's earned this. This is his second like coming. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he's back. Like, and culture actually knows who this guy is this time. Mm-hmm. There is I think the average person might even know the Sam Raimi oeuvre because of the original trilogy. And not that they don't know Evil Dead and stuff, but it's the Spider-Man movies which he's going to be compared to, right? And that's not a perfect trilogy in any way. Spider-Man 2 is maybe still even my favorite superhero movie, to be honest with you.
But I mean, it's in the conversation, and that's astonishing for a movie that was made,
it's still
20 years ago or whatever.
It still stands there for me, and I'm a big fan of the first or second or third.
What about the Donner Superman? Where does that rank for you?
Oh, I mean, Donner Superman. I mean, I love it to death, and it is formative in my life. Mm-hmm. And Superman is, as I'm not even a Spider-Man fan, which might explain my love of Raimi's Spider-Man, because it's apparently so inaccurate and not like Spider-Man, but I don't care. But Superman is actually my favorite superhero, as basic as that is. And obviously Christopher Reeves is formative, I mean, I don't think it's been matched until maybe the new show that's happening right now, which is incredible. With
Tyler
Hoach, that TV show is I finally got the Superman I want, with the special effects I want and the storytelling I want. Like,
congratulations.
Yeah, right. Like, it's taken a lot of different steps here. You're like, with Superman Returns and then Zack Snyder, all of them got something right. They did. But I feel like this show finally, since the 70s, finally got the whole thing, the whole package right. But I mean, in the end, I mean, Superman is Christopher Reeves still, no matter what.
Yeah,
that doesn't stop. Is it in my top 5 comic book movies? Maybe not, but that doesn't matter. It's still a number one. I mean, it is comic book movies. It's like Citizen Kane, right? Of comic book movies.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, without that movie, I don't know what my childhood would be. And honestly, my favorite Superman movie is still probably 2. If I had to choose.
Yeah, though. You're right.
I think as a kid, I watched 2 more than any of them. And I specifically the theatrical cut, not the Donner cut. No offense, Mr. Donner. I do not like it. It's not his fault that I don't like that. It just is not a movie. I watched it and I'm like, this isn't a finished movie, and I don't care. And the idea of him turning the Earth back again a second time in the second movie, I'm like, no. This didn't happen. I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't like considering that the cut of the movie, which a lot of people seem to now. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's crazy to me. Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good cut. It's not a good movie.
No, but I'm just saying it's nuts to think that people would think that kind of like, this was like a DVD extra.
It's a DVD extra, and that's fine. That's fine. Right. It's fun, but it's not the movie, and I will not accept it as Superman 2 is the movie Richard Lester made.
Yeah.
It just is. And it might have been awesome if it probably would have been better if Donner got to make his movie back then, but but I mean, what is it? I'm assuming Superman is in your top 5 here.
I'm guessing it must be one of the. I mean, it's tough because you start thinking about like
there's so many now.
The top 5 could all be Marvel movies without me even thinking about it. But right. If I'm going to go, I guess it's probably in my top 10. I mean, I think top 5 is tough to say, but I would say top 10. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you discount the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what's like your top 2? If you take the MCU out. It's a hard question, right?
It really is. I mean, definitely Superman 1 or 2. I'd have to really think about them as movies. And I think you might be right about 2 being like the better story. But there's something about the first one that is just
the first one is
a man can fly thing, like all that stuff. It just so I would have maybe.
You remember how you said the modern myth making thing? Superman the movie is modern myth making. in the most grandest sense. Like it truly, it's magical in that way.
All right, if we take away MCU, but that doesn't mean all Marvel movies, I think maybe Logan might be one of my other favorite.
Oh, Logan's a great movie.
Yeah.
Logan's a great movie. I'd probably go with also Blade 1 or 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really
Blade 2 maybe for me. That's yeah, you're right.
Blade
that's
2 is like
movie.
the right mix of corny and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blade 2. And I got to say, the first 2 Batman, I love them. I don't care about how cliche that is. Those are movies. Those were so big in my, I'm 39 right now. Those were huge. And they're
Batman Returns was definitely the one that I almost said instead of Logan, because it's just such a intensely, and it's also as a Tim Burton fan of that era when he was just had this tight visual style. That version of the Penguin is crazy. That version of Catwoman is crazy. You can't beat the Gonzo aspect of the way those characters were sort of like Tim Burton being really irreverent about Batman at a time when everyone wanted it to be super grim. And so to almost be equally inspired by the Adam West show and the kind of camp value of that, but filtered through his aesthetic and taking the kind of quote unquote darkness of the comics. But but those movies never feel kind of grim dark like the comics.
No, they don't.
More like sort of again, it's the Tim Burton aesthetic. He found a way to make all these kind of nutty characters who have these pathologies that they have to act out their inner feelings with costumes and stuff. I mean, he made it feel so twisty and psychological in a fun way.
It's as I say, in my very unpopular opinion, I don't like Nolan's Batman trilogy. And I know that's not a popular opinion. I love Nolan as a filmmaker. Let me be clear. But I truly enjoy the fact that Burton's movies, I would not consider them action movies.
Yeah.
I think that makes them extraordinary. They're character-based, quippy, weird movies. They're just not like they go into the action section in the video store in the old days, but they're not action movies. Like, and people like make fun of the action, and I'm like, well, the action is not really the point.
Yeah.
And I like that about them. You watch the movies now, like that they make, and everything is about action scenes. And like, I am so about the fact that those movies aren't, even the Superman movies, I would argue, aren't really about action scenes. They're about
I'm just thinking like
scenes, but
like Tim Burton before that, like, okay, so he's directing a Batman movie.
Yeah.
What was the biggest action scene he directed before this? It might have been the moment where Beetlejuice has the giant sledgehammers for hands that inflate out, and he shoots people up into the ceiling. Yeah, that's Tim Burton's idea of action. Right? It's like much more cartoony and surreal, and I do think that yes, you almost feel that. And I've had that thought in my head that the action in those movies is kind of muddy, but when you put it that way, it is true. It's like, well, what do you expect from a guy who's definitely not? It's not. He's not.
He's not concerned with it.
It's not Tony Scott that we're dealing with here.
Yeah. He's not concerned with it, and I can see how introducing them to a kid now, coming off of The Dark Knight or even Ben Affleck, they're gonna be like, what? You know what I mean? You show them like the BVS scene, like of Batman, the Batman raid scene in BVS versus Michael Keaton barely able to turn his neck fighting a dude in an alleyway. It's not even comparable.
Yeah, right.
But I don't care about that part. I don't care about that part in BVS either, to be honest with you. Like it doesn't. I don't know if I like these movies for that stuff. So that's why I really like about the tone of the Burton movies. And that probably mars a lot of Batman movies since.
Yeah.
I prefer I prefer Schumacher's movies to Nolan's movies, if I'm totally honest. Like I'm not the audience for
I don't know if I agree, but I totally get where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Like, I think that like this assumption that the darker, the better, the grimmer, the better, the more plausible, the more grounded, the better. I don't think that's right. I think making it more plausible and grounded and psychological for certain audiences, I think it helps bring people in, but I don't think it's the one way for these movies to be. And frankly, sometimes I get sick of them, trying to take it too seriously and feel like, well, now we have to explain all this and make it all make sense. And it's like, no, you could also just have a guy an ugly baby that's born and his parents like put him in the sewer or something, and then he becomes a penguin man who can lead an army of penguins. And you don't have to really, there's nothing grounded about that.
It doesn't matter, right? And yeah, like I guess I don't, man, how do you put words on this? I guess I don't really need any heroes to be real.
Yeah.
I don't. It's not something I require for my enjoyment for any of this. It's nice when they do. I mean, The Winter Soldier is a great movie. It's not my favorite Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great movie. I'm not arguing with anyone that it isn't great. It's a great movie. It's a great Marvel movie. Is it in my top 5 of the MCU? Not really. To be honest with you. I don't revisit it that much. Am I lonesome? I don't really want to, because it is the most, like, you know, if there's any movie in this universe that got close to like Nolan, I think Winter Soldier's up there and a few others, but Winter Soldier's at the top. And even then I'm like, okay, yeah, it's great. It's a serious movie, but I could watch The Manchurian Candidate, which has people wearing suits instead of, you know, Star Spangled Colors and having actual conversations with human. I don't need, like, I guess to me, I'm just like, either we're all in or we're not, you know, tone wise. You know, so like to me, the best Batman movie since Burton is Lego Batman, easily, 100%, without question. It's a movie that understands Batman better than any of the movies since have. You know, and I don't need the action. I don't need it to be real action. Lego action is fine with me. You know, so like they haven't reached me again with that, and I don't like Robert Pattinson's trailer. Everyone was going, you know, dicks out, ape shit for that. And I was like, it's once again, I was like, you're losing me. It's just going to be all hatred and darkness. And okay. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe am I getting too old for it? I don't know.
I'm encouraged by several things about that movie, but
Matt Reeves is a great filmmaker.
That the overall tone, like I expect more from Matt Reeves than that monotonous tone that
let me say too, I think War of the Planet of the Apes is a goddamn masterpiece of the ages that is underappreciated. I think Matt Reeves literally made a masterpiece that will not be appreciated for decades. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, but all at the same time, I'm like, I don't want more of this from Batman, man. We just had all this shit. Like, didn't Nolan do this fucking shit? And we're going to have him be all dark again. Oh man. At least I like Ben Affleck's suit in his car. I liked the design of Ben Affleck's shit. At least that was nice. I don't know. And it was like Zack Snyder, as dark as Zack Snyder is, he's still corny enough in some ways for me that I can, you know, not the writing, but like the tone is still kind of corny. It's so over the top. And then, but when I saw the trailer for Robert Pattinson, I was just like, it's too, you're taking it too seriously. Like, stop with this stuff. I don't know, who is this for? Angry teenagers, I guess. I don't. It's just me. I'm a Superman guy, so it doesn't matter. You know, and obviously I wanted Superman to be a different tone for a long time. So
right. And they still haven't quite nailed that, you know, since
except for the TV show.
Yeah, right. No,
the TV show did. You know, and I love Henry Cavill. I think he's a great Superman. Never got a chance to be Superman. So he's a great one. Yeah, so I'm a tone guy, and Marvel, people hate the tone of Marvel, but for me, it's what I've been asking for a long time, and I finally got it. So I don't know what they're expecting. A lot of these people that hate it, I don't know what they're expecting when they go in. You know, what do you want?
They like fun.
I don't think people often want total fun or something that's actually seeking total fun.
Yeah.
And they hold it against the thing. Like, how dare you try to make me have fun, you know? Like, but why wouldn't you want $100 million spent on a movie, $200 million? It needs to be fun. I'm sorry. Yeah. You can't, like, it just isn't the DCEU proof that it wouldn't work if you did it the other way.
Right. That if it's just about the ideas, you need the.
Let's say Zack Snyder was never fucked with, and all his movies came out as they were, which you could argue Man of Steel and BVS did. They did underperform. Yeah, they didn't perform the way WB wanted them to.
Even though they were huge hits, they weren't.
But compared to what they cost in marketing, they did not perform to the level they wanted them to. Because even if you think they're masterpieces, they're not fun.
Right.
The Man of Steel isn't exactly like a party movie. I've seen Man of Steel 10 times. I've seen a lot. And I don't, it's not a party movie. It's not something you're like, hell yeah, dude. Let's go and let's sit down and watch Man of Steel or BVS. They're not party movies. Anyway, I'm rambling. Yeah.
No, I we could keep going, obviously. But I think what I love about this is if people thought, well, I'm not really into this this Marvel talk. Maybe they'll get into something else. Well, I'm not really into this Star Wars talk. Maybe they'll get into something else. Well, Batman talk is how we close it out. No, that was a little bit of Superman talk. I should give you credit. You're trying to bring it back to, truth, a lot of people don't, the American way.
Superman Superman fans are not something you encounter in everyday life. There are a lot
you're
of
right.
them.
Yes,
but people fucking love Batman. He is the cool thing to love, and so I don't often have a Superman fan to talk about Superman with, but it's usually online. Like I see them online, but yeah, Batman's the guy that everybody loves, even though I'd argue that he's mentally ill and quite toxic.
Right.
He
definitely is. Yeah.
And he's not someone to look up to in any way, shape or form, but that's me. I like the guy who's mentally healthy.
The weird 1% part of Batman is kind of an interesting thing to get into. The fact that he's sort of this super privileged guy, who goes out,
who can't get over the death of his parents and beats up poor people. And yeah. And I think that is something that has never, maybe this WB is doing the Black Superman movie, which I'm totally fine with. I don't have any problem with that. Maybe that'll explore that. I think if it ever was going to be explored, it would be with that.
Sure.
What are the differences between the two of them? I would love that question. Why? And I feel like in movies, especially, Superman has never been given his due for exactly why is he mentally healthy? Why is he not someone that you want to be? You don't look at Superman and you say, I want to be Superman. You look up to Superman. Whereas I think Batman has the relatable factor, and that's why he's, people I can be Batman. I'm like, do you really want to be mentally ill and have your parents murdered and beat up poor people? I don't understand. I don't get that. That doesn't play with me very much.
Well, plus that whole notion of him, and we probably should stop at some point.
Yeah, I don't want to take
I will put this little thought of I do think that that is a lot. This idea that Batman is this street level guy who he gets by on his wits and all that. It's no, it's usually crazy gadgets, and he survives things he shouldn't survive. And when he's going into battle alongside Wonder Woman and Superman and Flash, it's farcical to think that tactical thinking and and also this idea he doesn't kill people. It's since when does he not? It seems like he's killing people left and right. We just don't linger on it. But there's just all these
which Batman we talking about?
But I'm just saying, even in the best example of that, there's explosions and people flying. It's he's not trying not to kill people the way that people want to act. Right. But I think that people just think it's that he's cool and he's the smartest guy in the room. And if there's anything about the new movie that I've heard that I'm excited about, is that it's supposed to be a detective oriented story. And I do like the idea of him having a mystery that he's up against like that. But I do agree with you that if the trailer is an indication of the full look of that movie, I don't think that it's going to have the opportunity that it could have to be an immersive world. But maybe I'm just completely wrong, because you're right. Matt Reeves is great, and he's an amazing filmmaker. He has done some kind of visionary things with those different movies he's made, and particularly the Apes films, where it's just the visualization and everything about it is
it was Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was that level of great. I just can't believe people didn't latch onto it even harder. But what I was going to say about Batman is, to me too, the design is very important. Zack Snyder's design to me was amazing. I'm not commenting on the writing or performance or anything. I love that Batsuit, and I think that the car was the best since Burton. Burton's easily the best Batmobile. To some degree, Batman is not a character himself. When the guy is in the suit, it doesn't really matter. Val Kilmer literally said this in his new documentary. He was like, I'm just interested in Batman because when you're wearing the suit, you're not acting. You're not doing anything. He's right. And that goes for every iteration of Batman. It matters how they look. I literally fucking hate how Christopher Nolan's Batman looks. I hate that suit. I hate that car. I don't like how Robert Pattinson looks at his suit. I don't. I think he looks terrible. instant disinterest just because of the aesthetics. I hate saying that Zack Snyder actually interested me because of the actual aesthetic. Like it pains me to say that.
Well, that's kind of his thing, honestly, though.
It is. That's what he's good at. Yeah.
The visual style is like it. Yeah.
And to me, that Batsuit is fucking awesome. And it looks great. It looks great to me. The Pattinson it looks terrible. He looks so bad to me. I mean, I think he's slightly less bad than Christian Bale looked. And I hate Christian Bale's costume to such a violent degree. Oh my God, do I hate that costume? Just like seethingly fucking hate it. Yeah. Not a popular opinion. Not popular at all. Yeah.
I mean, I would honestly have to do like a side by side and wonder about like what it is do I like about one versus the other. But I've had issues with lots of them. I think the more head movement we get, the more like I do like it when it looks like
it's nice to move your head. Functional works, so but I don't think need Michael
turning the neck to the character is something that I think that Nolan tried to do.
But as
it looks like they're doing with the new one too.
Since Burton movies, the action doesn't matter. I don't care about the head problem.
Right? No, you're right.
And he looks better in a profile. He just looks better in a shot with the actually filled out neckline and everything. He looks more like a bat, like the symbol. I don't care that he can't move. I don't care that much. It looks better, because really it's about standing there on a fucking gargoyle while the light is shining in the air. And that's what it matters, like it's not, I don't care about the fighting that much. Yeah, I don't care about it being a tactical guy. Leave that for the Punisher. I mean, because really, if you want to get down to it, John, the Batman is the Punisher for people who aren't willing to go the full length. That's all it is. I mean, why are you dilly-dallying around with the Batman when you could just be a Punisher fan? Don't act like you're a good guy. Just go full bore. I mean, because it's just really, he's just Punisher light. He really is. I mean, is he not? Come on.
In a way, I get what you're saying.
And I know the Punisher has all these connotations with like police and all that terrible stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, if I'm going to be a fan of Batman, and I do like Batman, if I'm going to be a fan, I'm just like, why not just go Frank Castle? I mean, why am I... One's like the levels of mentally ill are just slightly different here. And one's just like, I'm going to kill everybody versus I'll kill some people sometimes when I have to.
Right. And then make a big deal out of how I don't kill anybody the rest of the time.
Right. At least Frank Castle's honest.
Right. I kill everybody all the time.
Yeah. You're a fucking criminal. You're dead. At least it's honest, right?
Yeah.
I just like, why cut through the shit? Just say you like the Punisher and move on. He wears black. He kills criminals.
If it's the emblem you want, he's got a really cool emblem, right. It's a little overused and like you said, associated with some
bad stuff, with some heinous stuff. But why not just go full bore with it?
So what we're doing is, if we leave you with any thought tonight, folks, is consider vigilantism. Violent.
No, I'm not saying become
unrelenting vigilantism.
I'm talking about fandom. I'm not talking about actual action here. You know that. Yeah, I'm just saying if you're gonna love some character, what are you pussyfooting around with Batman for? Go with the guy who really, just go with the guy who's also mentally ill and just walk into a room of mobsters, just cut them all down without thinking.
Be like me and go with if you want to emulate a character, either the angry raccoon with the laser gun or the guy who can shrink down real small. Those are better role models.
Those are your role models. Those two?
I just said that. Those might be my two favorite Marvel characters. Ant-Man and Rocket Raccoon might be my two favorites.
Really? I didn't know this. That's interesting.
I mean, it's interesting to hear myself say it, but I really do think that might be the case. That if I were the type to wear a T-shirt, it might be a Rocket T-shirt.
So you're going to be like excited for Quantum Mania?
Oh, totally.
I am too.
I mean, especially because I think that's going to be a big story. And Peyton Reed had said that he wanted to get a chance to make one of the kind of load bearing Marvel movies. So
yeah. And he's great.
I think Wasp is great. I think that all that's been good. Evangeline Lilly is engaging and good in those movies too.
I love both those movies, and I actually think the first Ant-Man's great. I think the first Ant-Man was actually like kind of a little bit of a savior of the MCU or in the early days, because it was like everything's getting a little too heavy. And then Ant-Man came in with the low stakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it brought some fun back. And it did stuff like with Michael Pena describing everything. Like none of the other ones were doing anything that silly. And I was just like so happy to see a low stakes movie that was having some fun. And it was like a breath of fresh air, you know?
And that had something close to that kind of like cinematic inventiveness that you think of when you have like a clever like Peyton Reed is kind of he's always got an aesthetical, like there's something going on whether you see it or not. He's got such a shit like run with people just totally doubting him at every turn because he was replacing Edgar Wright. Yeah,
he got a bunch of shit when he was doing his Mandalorian episodes to bring this full circle to an end.
Yeah,
he got all this shit when he was doing his Mandalorian episodes, and then he directed literally the last one, and all those fanboys shut right the fuck up. They were like, "All right, I'm sorry, I was wrong about Peyton Reed. I'm sorry about everything."
I will add my thought to that, which is that a lot of people after Ant-Man came out, they were trying to guess like which parts of the movie were prevised by Edgar Wright and which parts were Peyton Reed. The Michael Pena stuff was all Peyton Reed. Those sequences with him telling the stories and stuff, which feels so Edgar Wright. And you would have believed 100% if they'd said that was one of his conceits. But it was Peyton Reed who came up with this idea of like, here's a way to get this exposition out in a way that people will like. And it became one of the, I think, people's favorite things about those movies is seeing Michael Pena get that little starring moment, you know. So
they completely missed an opportunity to make that video that everyone asked for.
Yeah,
which was right before Endgame, where Michael Pena recounts the entire MCU like that.
Yeah,
how did they miss that opportunity? They still could do it. They still could do it.
Yeah,
and they still should do it. But it was just such a Endgame would have been the perfect moment.
Maybe he can have some kind of maybe
he can recap all the TV shows.
Right, something like that. With all this multiverse stuff going on, there's got to be some opportunity for him to do some crazy thing.
I'm always down for more Michael Pena. So
always,
yeah, he's the best, man. Observe and report, represent. If you don't know if you like that movie,
no, I need to see that one. I think I will really like it. Everything I've heard is great. I haven't watched it.
It's a Taxi Driver with Seth Rogen as a mall cop.
Oh, yes. Now I'm remembering more. No, you're right. I did see some of that. The tone of that was actually quite surprising.
It's very surprising.
Like, it gets dark, but it also maintained. It was like at the time they were definitely subverting expectations of what you thought a Seth Rogen character or movie would be.
And it came out near Paul Blart. It was like completely not, and it's not for the masses. It's a very dark comedy. Yeah. But I do really love it. I love Jody Hill. Anything he's done. What is it? Eastbound and Down, man. One of my favorite shows of all time.
Oh yeah.
All right, we could keep talking forever.
Yes.
I want to cut this off because I've already used almost 3 hours of your time. John, thank you so much. If you ever want to come back, you know you're always welcome. And if you ever want
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, man. Let me know if you ever want Movie Schmovie people.
Oh,
I love to talk with Ron and Steve too.
Oh no, definitely. We've been trying to think of like what's a good episode to have you on. What's a good reason to have you on?
Don't make it no comic books. Give me something else that isn't comic books. Like
so, I'll make you come on and talk about Star Wars like you did me.
Can't you have like a Babe Pig in the City episode or something? Yeah.
You know, there's room for that. That'll do.
Yeah, or a Tank Girl episode. Give me something weird.
Yeah,
Army of Darkness or something. I don't know. You know, not we just did all that stuff. The big budget stuff. You know,
we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. That's it. All right. See you, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You just made it to the end of Shrimp Night, a casual chat show available only on the Thunder Grunt podcast.